Shut up and sit down.
You know, when you tell people you do triathlons, usually the first question is, have you done the race in Hawaii? So I'm always proud to say, yeah, I have.
Hey, so I heard about your race. It was shit. Try harder next time.
I hate early mornings. I don't want to swim. All right, Instagram, let's do this. Selfie, 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 selfie. Hashtag triathlon, hashtag tri-training, hashtag tri-life, hashtag swimming, hashtag swimmer, hashtag rise and grind.
$900 for a race. Seems totally reasonable.
In triathlon, first you swim, then you bike, and then you run. Out of money. Haha, I crack myself up sometimes. You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with Matt Legrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von During. Enjoy.
Oh, $600 for a triathlon entry? What an absolute steal. Fraser, you know, they've got a great deal going on for that triathlon at the moment.
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Von During, and today I'm here with Evan Price.
Oh, I get to go first today.
Ooh.
Oh, this is fun. Okay. So first I was going to say, what are we all drinking today? But I have here some Park Tool cleaning things, which I'm super excited about. Has anybody seen the Park Tool just like brush set?
Has our intros gone from like
It's an
you do your one-liner to now like you just anything that
anything that pops into your head, you got it. One
just,
of these brushes is very interesting looking.
Yeah, it is. Was there a lot going on that Park Tool?
I don't know what's going on this.
Okay, so this is the Park Tool BCB 4.2, which is like bike cleaner brushes. What
So
the
many
heck
brushes.
is going on there?
Oh, this
Hey,
is so
ladies
cool.
and gentlemen of the internet, what you cleaning?
What you cleaning?
What are you cleaning today? Oh, I'm cleaning with Park Tools. I'm also drinking Spindrift.
I love Park Tools.
Park Tools is great.
I love Park Tools.
Yes.
So do I. Got a bunch of their stuff now.
They make good stuff.
Yeah, we
Me
got
and Matt are both sipping on Spindrift.
Spindrift.
Jake's the only creative one here.
got
some
Kombucha.
Yeah, some kombucha.
Kombucha.
Picked that up yesterday. Good tasty.
What's the
stuff.
brand? Hum.
Yeah.
Hum.
Costco. Sorry for all the little dings there. Yeah.
We have,
Blueberry
I know
mint.
that we can turn those dings off. We have
There are
to be able to.
notifications that are coming through on my computer that is recording that I can't turn off.
But you can turn off the dinging from your computer.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think it's
We'll
just
look into
become
it.
like
People
fun
know that my
background
kids are
music. It's just yeah.
Requesting things on the App Store, and I have to approve them. So
That's the other thing in here is we're hooked up to Alexa. Correct? Is Alexa in here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
we're being constantly monitored by Alexa, and every once in a while, like Jake's kids will chime in with like a,
An
"Hey, is lunch ready?"
announcement.
It's like,
It's funny how that's all connected together, but it is what it is. Cool. To Evan's right, Mr. Matt Legrand.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? You guys are connected. You're connected to us over. You can all you have to do is chime into Jake's Amazon and
you might not be
Join
looking
the pod-
good, but you are connected.
join
That is
the
for sure.
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Log
send me a
in.
notification. I'll get you LinkedIn.
That's-
Just don't buy anything while
That's
you're at it. And today, Lance Romance.
He's missing in action.
He is all
normally-
gone.
you had
Yeah.
one job, Lance. One job,
He's got one commitment a week. That's it. Other than riding his bike.
and he failed the commitment. He nailed the
sorry,
riding bike
guys.
part. I've been checking his Strava. He's for sure been doing that job good.
At a cell range, busy riding my gravel bike with my dog.
Sorry, the Idaho-Utah border doesn't have good cell reception. Like, are you sure isn't that where Boise is? I'm pretty sure
No,
Boise has
I don't
good.
think that's true.
I don't know. I don't know my geography that well.
I don't.
So, instead of talking about the stash, do we need to talk about Evan's?
We can talk about
stashes?
my stash.
stash.
I need to clean up everything.
What's the
the
future
stash
of-
is getting strong.
Yeah, what's the future there? It's getting
It's
longer,
staying.
fuller. It's got that cop vibe going on. With
I
it right
have
now.
to. I have to race it next year. It has to make it to race season next
Are
year.
you gonna let it keep growing out? Maybe cover your mouth. You're gonna do the
'cause that
Lance
gets
little
annoying.
curly cues. You're
I
gonna go
want to. I
Fu
want to do
Manchu
the.
style.
I
Maybe?
want to do the curly cues. I would love to try Fu Manchu, but I don't think I have a good enough face for that.
Why? You never know until you know.
I know, but you have to have a really good face to pull off a Fu Manchu well. Like you got to be like that, like model jaw structure. I am not a model jaw structure. I am for sure.
Yeah, but you do have like a cop vibe, which is awesome.
I'm just trying to pull people over. That's all I'm trying to do right now.
This happened to one of my friends. He had
nobody can see with the mask on though. That's the problem.
I had this friend, and he was like a weird guy, and he was like a Boy Scout, and he like somehow thought it would be funny to like put his Boy Scout uniform on and get one of the sirens and pull people over.
That's like a federal crime, isn't it?
Yeah, he got in trouble.
Oh, did he go to jail for that?
No, but they were like,
that's like an actual federal crime.
Yeah, you can't do that. So he got in trouble for that, but I think it was just like a you can't do this thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I was like, please stop before we have to actually arrest you for this.
Because he was like high school.
Oh yeah, they're like, you don't want this charge on your record, buddy.
You don't get arrested in high school. You just get a stern talking to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's gonna stay around till next year. I figured if in the pro field, if I'm gonna be slow, I have to look cool at least.
Yeah, but a lot of the pros have stashes. You got Lionel. You've got
mine's better than Lionel's.
Joey. Wait, no, not Joey. Who's the Australian that's hilarious?
Amberger. Oh God, Amberger.
Josh.
Okay, right. Amberger's stash is a joke though. He is
Yeah.
hilarious, but that stash is an absolute joke. It's
and yours is so serious.
It is. It's 100% business over here.
Okay.
Lionel's is
This
bad.
has been brought to you by Mustache Talk.
It's funny that we have mustache talk even though Lance isn't here.
I know.
Got to carry on the tradition.
Lance's mustache is much better than mine. Like that's an objective fact. His is much better than mine.
All right, let's move on. How about some backpedaling, boys? Matt, what you been up to?
I don't even know what I've been up to. I've been working so much. I worked straight through the weekend. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I rode with you last week, and we went for the easiest ride that Jake has ever been on. Every time I've ever ridden with Jake, it's been like always hard. Like it's easy for him, but hard.
Yeah.
And this is the one time I've ever seen him take an easy ride. We rode around, and then we like did this weird little loop down there, and we were still going a decent clip down. We did this like little tiny neighborhood loop down by the lake. Mm-hmm. And then we were kind of cruising back around, and we went up, and we were just cruising around this this old, I guess it's an office building kind of situation. It's UL, but it's the school has purchased this big.
It's a
plot
beautiful
property.
campus, yeah.
And
Really?
we're talking
Yeah.
about doing like cyclocross race there and doing a cross country race and how we can make that happen. And Jake was going like 4 miles an hour, and I was like, "This is amazing! He never goes slow. This is awesome." So that was the highlight of the week.
Spot?
It's
right off a lake.
You've gone past it
a million times.
I'll-
Okay.
Well, I'll show you sometime.
Is it near the
So
new
if
roundabout?
you're going like east on Lake, like before you go to the downhill,
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
right
on the
before
right
downhill.
hand side. It's,
Oh, yeah.
There's that big kind
between
of
like Ledbetter,
Right
and
next to the
Parker.
track?
Yeah,
It looks
Right
like a
next to-
park, kind of.
Okay,
but
cool. Yeah,
it's-
yeah, I know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome if they turned that into a cross country course. Yes.
Well, it's not going to be turned into a cross country course. It would be,
But they could use
a
it as
school facility that they could use because no one's using it right now. Basically, from what I know,
What
no, they're not using it for anything.
What they put there, like baseball fields and stuff like that. Or,
they probably are not going to put anything there.
They were
except
talking.
for-
Well, the school district bought it about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And they just they're future planning. They don't have like firm plans for it yet, but it could be used for a multitude of different things. It could be a different kind of campus, but it's kind of sprawling, and it's got a lot of like open fields. It's got different.
pretty.
It's pretty.
It's a cool
and
spot,
well, that's right up next to another middle school, Skyridge, if I'm not
Skyridge,
mistaken.
yep. Mm-hmm.
So you've got basically two school properties right next to each other, which gives Matt quite a bit of real estate to come up with a pretty, I don't know, unique
cross country course.
Yeah,
but it makes sense to do cyclocross and cross country courses in conjunction because you're separating all this stuff out. You're taking the day, food carts, all this stuff, and it's good to have extra crowds. And once you've done the work, you might as well have the dual play. And we were talking about like,
definitely.
oh, well, you raise a lot of money this way, and you could I don't know what we would do.
Dude, this
with
could
it,
be
but
your cross country course. You just make it, and then you just reap the benefits.
I don't know, but
Is that a conflict of interest? I'm not sure.
The other thing is, spent a lot of time biking indoors. I don't think I swam at all this past week because
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if I did because I'm not swimming a lot. I haven't had a ton of time, so maybe it was just biking this week. I'm trying to think I'm sure I ran a little bit, but not much. On Thursday, I went back out again, and because Jake and I had done this little neighborhood loop down by the lake,
Matt crushed somebody's dreams.
I went over there, and so when Jake and I had done this, I looked at my Strava, which I almost never even do. I looked at it and I was like, he and I like cruised conversationally around this thing, and we're like second and third on the list or something. And we were high up on the list. It wasn't second, third, but we were up there. And I was like, ooh, I should go snag that KOM.
Yeah.
So I went down there on Thursday, and I was thinking like right before the rain comes, before anyone else can snag this thing. And I got a KOM. Haven't had one of those in like, I don't know how long.
Isn't there a way we can look at Matt's KOM list?
Probably.
How many KOMs do you have now?
One.
I would say
you got more than one.
I have no idea.
I would say we should start a competition on a running list, but Lance is smoking all of us.
The second Lance listens to this, the second he gets home, Lance is going to go out and snag it.
Every time I look at Lance's rides out there too, he's like doing so. I was like, God, you got a lot of KOMs this ride. And I look back, it's like 4 people have done this ride. I was like, he is truly in the middle of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there's literally only been like 3 guys the last 10 years that have even stumbled across this road.
Yeah, we're going to have to grill him and ask him how many of those segments he created as well.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is because I know if there's 3 or 4 guys, that it was already a thing. You just looked for him and found him out there.
No, you can go out there and you can create your own segment. And then once it uploads, there won't be a segment there, but you can create a segment and then you can refresh the segments
so
on there. And
anybody's
all of a
been
sudden,
on there
it
before.
will pop up.
Yeah.
You will be the KOM because nobody went faster than you because it wasn't a segment, and you've got yourself a little, trophy to take home.
Lance should make it a goal of his to try and be the nation's leader in KOMs.
That
Strava
would
should
be-
start counting this like a chart.
I have a feeling that like there's someone in the Bay Area that's just got
absolutely.
1,000
million climbs. Yeah.
Anyway, I also rode with Jake again, sort of. He was on gravel bike on Saturday. I think it was Saturday or Sunday. I don't know.
Saturday.
And I sent him a message like, hey, wheels up in 5 minutes kind of thing. And, he sent me a picture back, and it was like him on the gravel. Like, it was a pretty picture, actually. It was just like trees with like a motion blur and like on a gravel section of somewhere. And I was like, okay, he's probably out on Washougal Dike Trail. And I was biking. I actually do this sometimes. I'll like return a movie on the bike, and I just need to get my hour in. And so I'm like cruising around, and I saw Barrett, your son.
Yep.
And then I was like, I told him, I was like, I'm going to go look for your dad. And I cruised down towards Washougal and found you.
Yep.
And rode with you for 30 minutes or something.
Yeah, something like that. It was a good
It
way
was
to
great.
round out an hour-and-a-half ride for me.
Yeah, it was good.
There were some good days last week.
Yeah,
it was
there was,
supposed
a
to
couple.
rain all week, and it ended up not being that terrible. Even Saturday, when it was supposed to do nothing but rain, was like not terrible.
Yeah, it rained pretty good that night
Sunday
and
rained
into the morning, but then it let up and it was just cloudy.
Yeah, Sunday was mostly.
Last night I was gonna had this idea. I was like, oh, I'll do my hour. I'll watch this show that Chris and I are into, like the Umbrella Academy. I don't know, Netflix.
Oh, I saw it on there. Yeah.
And like the end of the day came around, and like my mind had shut off, and so I was like, put the pajama pants on. I was gonna put the kids to bed, and I was like getting like there was something I was doing like on the computer or whatever, and the kids were like, "Where's Dad? Is he on his bike?" And it dawned on me, like, oh. And I was like,
You hadn't ridden.
I was like, I almost missed this day because I forgot. Like, I think, what are we at, 53 or 4? 50,
Yesterday was 54.
54 days in a row.
5-5
I
today.
was this close to just falling asleep and totally forgetting about it.
Set the alarm for 11 p.m. Get the hour in.
Totally.
Right?
It was...
I've had some people come to me and ask for rulings on that. Like, I almost forgot, and then I remembered it was 11:30 at night that I started my ride, and I didn't finish until 12:30.
I think
Does
if
that
the ride
count?
starts prior to midnight,
That's
right?
exactly what I
There you
said.
go.
As
Yep,
long as
that's
it
what
starts
is.
right then.
That's
And then
fair.
I made one exception for somebody that started. It was like after midnight, and they're like, I totally forgot, and I got on. I'm like, you get
That
a
counts.
You get
That
a mulligan. It
Mulligan.
counts.
If
so.
you're up at midnight and jumping on the trainer, sure, that's good
I
for you.
one time ran in Ibiza, which is like this like party island in Europe, and I went for a run at like midnight or something like that, and it was the same kind of thing. I was like, I haven't run today. I need to get my run in, and I don't remember how many days in a row I had at that point, but
Yeah.
it was quite weird.
Yeah, I was talking to Matt about that. We were just kind of briefly discussing the dialed 100, and just out of curiosity, I asked Matt, I'm like, Matt, what's your record for consecutive runs in a row? And I about fell off my bike when he told me. On 2 different occasions, he's gone over a calendar year.
Yeah.
That's
and then that's like January 1 to like all the way through for calendar year. But I've also done more than that.
But
so.
I think you said back in 2001, if I'm not
think that's
mistaken,
when I was-
you went beyond a calendar year.
Yeah.
You did over 5,200 miles in a year.
Right.
You had a month where you were over 500 miles for the month.
Yes.
Which you were averaging over 20 miles a day, correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That is insane.
Something around somewhere around the 20 mile per day marker. That's a lot of running.
That is insane, Matt.
I showed Evan some of those logs when you were over
I
for
loved
like
it.
beer and pizza one night.
Loved
it was
looking at that. Yeah,
so funny just to see
some huge,
stupid miles,
just blocks there.
Yeah, that's
you put in the miles to be a pro runner. Like, I mean, really, if you had,
I think if I also
you would need like another 2 years of
couple
that.
Years.
But yeah,
I think so because I was also a little young too. You know,
you were like what 22 at the time when you were showing me 21, 22 during
21.
those books. 21.
Yeah,
that's still young for that kind of
I think
volume.
you just need a couple more years of that. Had I stayed at it, would have been good.
I think you're doing pretty good without running now. I don't think I don't think running would have made you millions.
I think a lot of people would look at me in my situation and be like, "Oh dear Lord, what happened?"
No, I'm pretty sure some of those runners living in their cars outside of Boulder would probably be like, I think he took the right route.
every time someone's like, I just took a job. I'm like, yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
This professional running stuff, it seems, it's always like, yeah, you're living the dream. Yeah, it's fun. But
for like a year,
if you make a decision not to do it, that's also okay. Like, there's,
Yeah, it's perfectly okay that you have a lovely bride, 3 great kids,
Yeah.
a nice house,
life is
great
good.
job. Yeah, life is
good.
Right on. Evan, feverishly typing away on his cellular device over there.
Are you looking up what you did last week?
Nope, I'm.
You want to backpedal for us?
Doing work things. Backpedal work. There, that was it.
Is that what you had a bad week of work?
Oh, just it's a busy time in the clinic, and that's basically it.
Did you get
how's the body
outside at
feeling?
all?
I need to answer this actually. Hold on a second. Sorry. No, this is like actually important.
Okay. Tell you what.
We're legitimately going to skip my backpedal. My backpedal was work. Crashed last weekend, sore all week, back to it now, feeling fine. So
glad you're feeling a little bit
better. That was basically it. Bike trained over the weekend and felt like things are coming back. So
good.
No starting track workout today or anything like that.
Starting the 2020. No, I skipped that today.
All right. Do your work stuff.
Back to it. Yep.
My backpedal real quick was mostly on the old trainer again, which kind of was a bummer. I did ride outside with Matt on Monday.
It's been rainy.
Yeah, it's been rainy. It was blustery yesterday.
We snuck out on Monday because it was like rainy, and then it was like, well, it looks like it might be okay for the afternoon or whatever.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like that right now, actually.
And it's just getting to the time of year, too, where we're losing minutes every day, and the days are getting really short. I don't think I'll be able to ride outside this week. I think we're going to actually be starting up our, and this was going to be my one last thing, but our
get in early.
Zwift Tuesday night rides will be starting up, not this week, but next week.
Those are good. They're hard. I think they help me a lot come around.
Yeah,
it's like stick with the group as long as possible. Next time, try and stick in there a little bit longer.
Exactly. I think the triathlon team will probably be getting started up here pretty soon. I don't know for sure, and then we'll probably have to start up with our juniors again for our junior rides that we were doing on Sunday. So that could be fun. But too much Zwift, and got to ride with Matt on Monday. Matt snuck up on me again on Saturday. That was pretty cool.
I saw you on Zwift a couple times, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard for me to even remember now.
So you've been making these comments like, I logged on, I tried to ride with Jake, and he just rode away with me. This time I saw you, and you're there, and I'm riding it at about 2.5 watts per kilogram. Oh, there's Matt. I'm like, I even took the time to go and give you like a little kudos or whatever. And then like you're riding it 0.6 watts per kilogram. So I went from 2.5 to 2 to 1.5 to 1 to like a half, and like you just kept falling further behind. I'm like, hey, I think he's doing his own thing today.
My IT band was hurting at some point this past week.
What is 0.6? Oh my! You're
per kilo.
spinning at like 50 watts.
Not even.
Maybe.
How is that even possible?
Okay.
I'm not even sure if you can get into a gear that low.
2 excuses.
Okay, let's hear them.
It was flat. It was flat surface, right? So you need to be in at least a reasonable gear. And my Di2 was dead, and so I was in like the small gear, just spinning. So there's that, and then my IT.
That sounds exhausting. That would almost be harder to spin at that wattage.
My IT band was hurting, and so I was like, "This is what I'm doing. I'm barely putting in an effort here." So could have hit some 50 watt outputs there at some point. Mm-hmm. But usually I'll at least get up to 100 watts for my easy stuff.
Has anybody done the bumper rides on Zwift? Where you got like it's like a group ride, but they have like a shield in the front where if you pass it, somebody yells at you. Basically,
somebody what?
Have you seen those yet? Like somebody will yell at you, like if you pass the shield in front, it's like the little moving barrier with the group.
No, I haven't done that.
Cassie did one of those rides on Sunday, and it was like an amazingly low wattage ride, which she did not realize, and then just kept on getting in front of the bumper thing, and like the person leading the group ride would just go and getting so angry, so she just left the ride at some point, but.
That's kind of dumb.
Yeah, but
I mean, I get it.
It was like 1.2 watts per kilo for the entire thing. She was like, "Oh God, this is I need to get out of here."
That's not her cup of tea. That's
No.
I have a hard time on indoor trainers. I just like every time I go ride outside, I'm I'm putting in normal wattage, over 150, to 200, whatever it is. I get on the trainer and I can't hold that wattage. I'm just so tired. Like, I don't know what it is.
You need some.
I just put the fan on and stuff like that. But
you need
still,
something else to engage you. Have you tried riding with the bots yet?
I have not tried really riding with the
Try
bots.
it.
Do that.
Just try it. Don't ride with
that.
don't
And I
ride with
need
the
to
D
do
group.
some-
The D group's a little bit
I
too
think I
slow.
need to upgrade mine because I can't find the bots.
You
And I
probably
need-
have to do the firmware update. And they don't
the
offer it
firmware
all the
update,
time
okay.
now. It's just a certain time. It used to be when they first came out. It was
Yeah.
like when it first came out, it was like, you can ride with the A group and the C group, or the B group and the D group. Now they offer it on certain days and times, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken, and they offer all of them on different courses, and you can go ride with them, and it's actually pretty fun.
The other thing is
Gotcha.
I should do some workouts.
I'd be fine with that.
The workouts are good, but those groups,
Absolutely.
if you're trying to hold a certain watts per kilogram, you can get
Just
a
do
good
that.
workout in there, and then people will jump off of the front. Like they'll chase like the different little segments. They'll chase the whatever you're trying to get up there on the leaderboard to get a jersey or something like that.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hannell, I was chatting with him this past weekend, and he's getting stronger by the day, man. For
I saw a workout
recently,
on Sunday where he looked strong.
recently having a full-on rod put down his whole entire
Yeah.
femur. What he's already doing on the bike just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But
That's crazy.
long story short, he was doing a ride with the bots, and he warmed up for 15, 20 minutes, and then his goal was for an hour to basically break away off of the front, away from the group, and hold them off.
That's
so
fun.
they're cruising along. I think he was in the B group, so they're rolling at about 3.2 to 3.5 or 3.7 watts per kilogram.
Okay,
so
yeah.
they're going pretty
Yeah.
good through the Sand and Sequoias route, and so there's some climbs in there, so you can kind of get away from them on the climbs because you can definitely kick up your watts. And then his
But
goal
they
was
move faster as a big group. That's
yeah,
the thing.
because on the flats
Yeah.
it's hard to hold them off. And then I
felt very hard. Yeah.
so I ended up doing the same thing last night with the Tempest Fugit. I think
Yeah.
is that route that they do, and it's just a super flat
Dead flat,
route.
yeah.
But
It
the
basically
problem
takes
is,
out Titans Grove. Same thing, but takes out Titans Grove. I
yeah,
think.
it's all. I think for a full like Titan or not Titans Grove, but Tempest Fugit lap, it's like 100 feet of climbing.
Yeah,
There's
it's like a
nothing in
bump,
there.
yeah.
But the group rolls along pretty steadily, 24, 25 miles an hour, and it ranges. The watts per kilogram went up to I don't know, like 2.6 or 2.7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And you break off the front, and then you just have to hold it. And that's not a big ask. But for me, I was like, all right, I broke off the front. I'm going to do the handle thing. And then all of a sudden the segment starts for it's the 10-plus minute segment. I can't remember what the segment's called. I'm like, I'm going to try and get that. So that was actually kind of a tall ask because the person that had it was flying pretty good.
Yeah.
So I busted that out, got that jersey, and then rode off the front still for the full hour like Hannell had suggested. And that was a good workout. So it's a different way to kind of engage yourself and get through the
Absolutely.
monotony of just sitting on there and spinning.
I think there's a lot of options on Zwift right now for this winter to like even more than compared to last winter, like pass the time on there.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was just on Sunday just piecing together random. It was Matt, did you see the little like or it was Saturday, not Sunday, the 17 hours of Kona thing. It was like Zwift did this 17 hours of Kona, which was for
I didn't see
17
it.
hours. They had a different pro basically every hour or every couple hours.
That's cool.
A guy and a girl who would lead a ride on Zwift for 1 hour.
Huh.
Yeah.
I saw some stuff posted on Strava from people that did rides on Zwift.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I
that
didn't
was,
know what it was, but
that
that's-
was a lot of
that's
them were
kinda cool.
doing those group rides.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yep. So pretty much on Zwift for 4 days and rode the gravel bike the other 3 days. 2 days and then rode with Matt once on the road. So it was a decent week, but my hours were down. It was the first week in about 7 or 8 weeks that I didn't hit 10 hours.
It's the rain, I think.
It was the rain,
Had
and
you gone out
I was
on
busy,
Sunday or
and I had a
whatever,
bunch
yeah.
of stuff I needed to get done, and I kind of needed like a down week anyway, so I can ramp it
Yeah,
back up, knowing that
you had been hitting 10 for a long time there.
it's been a while now.
Yeah.
And I really haven't taken like a down week. So this wasn't necessarily a down week in terms of like intensity. Not that there was a ton of intensity in there, but it was just a volume kind of come off a
Just
little
coming
bit.
down from the 10 hours. Yeah.
So
Makes next week feel better.
cool. All right. Leadout news. We haven't really talked about this, but does anybody have any news that they would like to share? I've got a couple things.
There's a ton of bike racing right now. It's kind of all like coming on at the same. It's like
Right.
all these races that they just like shoved in. It's a weird calendar to keep track of right now because all of a sudden, Paris-Roubaix got canceled,
Yeah, that's a bummer.
which was a big bummer. Tour of Flanders is supposed to be this weekend, but then simultaneously we got the Giro going on in the background, which I keep on forgetting. It's like I'll watch the Giro.
Have you been watching it? I haven't been watching it
I've just
at
been
all.
watching the highlights of it. To be completely honest, I am not connected to the Giro like I usually am. Usually each year I am like intently following the Giro because it's the first Grand Tour of the year and we're like excited.
Yeah.
But the Tour I think was just so awesome, and so intense to keep track of. It's like the Giro came along and you're like,
That's-
well, I kind of want to pay attention to the other one-day races right now.
Kind of the way that I've been too. Like the Giro, you get excited for that because it's there, and then you get you ready and like all juiced up for the tour.
Yeah.
And then you've got the Vuelta, and you're like, all right, I got to go watch the Vuelta because it's going to be the end of the season pretty much, and then you get sprinkled in all the other stuff, and everything's just
It's
all out
nicely
of order.
spaced. Yeah. So the Giro right now, I don't really have any awesome updates from that. I do have some cool. So I was debating with somebody, what is the most boring one-day big race? There's one-day races basically all season, but one of the bigger, most boring one-day races is Paris Tours. Paris Tours is so boring.
Yeah.
Did you even watch the highlights from it?
Nope.
Ends in a sprint. There you go. That was it. That's it's just some random breakaway that'll get away. The peloton will give up because Paris Tours is just a long, hard day. Usually after like there's harder days of racing before, and usually it's like, there's bigger races coming after, so it's stuck in this weird in between phase.
Yeah.
And just nobody cares about it.
Yeah. Now I should know this stuff. I just haven't been paying attention. Too busy. The Giro.
Yeah.
Is Sagan racing in that?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so there was a stage where he was riding back to the team hotel or something like that and got turned around or lost or something. Did you see that?
Yeah, I heard that he got. Yeah,
like
he's just having a rough year, man.
Yeah, asked some random car, like, "Hey, do you know where this is at?" They're like, "You're Peter Sagan." He's like, "Yeah." So he was holding onto the car and they were just driving him around and he was chatting with them. That guy is so cool.
Hilarious.
He is. He
Peter Sagan
really
when I
is.
grow up.
I know this is
Peter Sagan when I grow up.
that story could just personify his season.
Yeah.
Peter Sagan gets lost on way back from Giro stage. Just the poor guy.
Now, there
Still
was
fit as heck. He's so fit. It's just like the expectations when you're that good are like, oh, why is he not winning every race? It's like, well, yeah, because now there's other fast guys.
Yeah, there was a one-day race yesterday. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Oh God, was that Yent? I don't even remember. Yeah.
Yep, it was the Yent. And so Mads Pedersen won that.
Well, God, just like GW. What's the W? I don't even know where they go to. Welgrim.
Welgrim.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. I don't speak that. But there was an interesting story that came out of that. Did you hear what Wout had to say about MVP?
Yeah. So this was an interesting finish because Mads Pedersen, the former world champion, ended up winning when they were looking at each other. And I think Mads is I like Mads Pedersen a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be nearly as good of a world champion historically looking back as some, if Julian wins, when Wout wins, like those are guys who are going to get results.
Names,
yeah. But Mads was a very good world champ. And it's interesting because I think he was a little bit offended by the fact that like Wout and MVP didn't pay attention to him when he went. And they are going to pay for, I mean, if they keep on watching each other, they're going to need to realize there are other guys who can bang with them. Yeah.
Well, Wout came out and flat out said after the race, he's like, Van der Poel lost that race because he was too worried about making sure that I didn't win.
Yeah.
That's interesting for him to say that. And MVP is like, oh, that's rubbish or whatever he said.
You think those guys dislike each other?
They've been competing against
They've
each
been
other.
competing for a long time.
Like
I don't think they like
10
each
years.
other.
Yeah.
I don't think that. Well, and also it's a Dutch-Belgian. You know, in the cross world, that's a pretty big rivalry. The Dutch versus the Belgians is that's a tense rivalry in cyclocross.
They've been racing against each other in the cross scene since they were juniors and then started doing the road stuff. And, Wout's obviously done more to date in the road
on
stuff.
The road,
but MVP is still kind of, a little bit green in the road racing scene.
We all forget still the most amazing thing I've seen on a bicycle was last year I'm going to get the race wrong, but when he just drug that chase group back and then somehow it wasn't even a sprint. He just nobody could get in front of him for the entire time.
Exactly.
So,
but that again is something that Wout would do too. So
it is.
Interesting. In other news, Mark Cavendish sounds like he's going to be calling it a career. 35-year-old Mark Cavendish, after that race yesterday, kind of started to tear up and said, I think this might be my last race, even though they said he's got one more year in his contract or was talking about doing one more year.
I thought that there was some question about his contract recently.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the story, is like everyone knows he's
he hasn't done anything. Ever since he was Epstein-Barr, is that what he had?
Yes.
So ever since he's been dealing with that, he just really hasn't bounced back. He doesn't have a sprint for me. He just hasn't really accomplished anything, and he commands too much money, I think, for anybody to really want to have him on the team.
Right.
I mean,
he should honestly retire now and just get involved with British cycling from a coaching perspective. I think that would be a good coaching move for him, and I hope that Britain keeps Wiggins, I think, is not somebody who's going to stay. Wiggins is just going to go off on his own and not be involved with British cycling. But if guys like G, guys like Cav, when they retire, I really hope Luke Rowe, I think would be I hope that those guys stay around.
Oh yeah, it's great for cycling in that region. It's great for cycling in general. So I mean, you want to see him stay around. And I think for Cav, I think he's a good guy off the bike. I've seen stories about him doing cool stuff for kids. On the bike, I can't come to like him. I do not like him on the bike in races. I think he's kind of a well, I'll just bite my tongue.
I agree.
But
I've seen too many bad things.
Yeah, I just the straw that broke the camel's back was probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago when
with Peter Sagan.
No, with Degenkolb, when he put Degenkolb on the tarmac, and then he later on starts crying about Sagan, throwing an elbow at him when it was when it was actually his hood that caused that to happen. But anyway, but you got to give the guy some respect. I mean, 30 Tour de France stage wins. That's insane.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's absolutely. I mean, when he was at his best, cycling's a tough sport in the sense that it's hard to stay on top for a while nowadays.
Yep.
I think there was a time period where you could be dominant for but the cycling is so deep right now, and I think any of the guys watch, I know I've heard Jans Voigt even talk about it, where he's like, the depth of talent in the World Tour scene right now is crazy. I mean, we see all these young guys come through, the Peter Sagans of the world, the Cavendishes of the world. It's kind of their time's up, and we're moving into the era of MVP and Wout and everybody. So.
I still say that Sagan's not done yet. He's 30 years old, just turned 30. I know that you start to kind of taper off, but Cav was still doing stuff when he was 30. And I think that just based on what happened this year, 2020 for Sagan was probably just a bad year, just like it was a bad year for a lot of people.
But I agree Sagan's still a great rider. I think the problem for Sagan is the races that he wants to win. I think there are better cyclists now that are just going to beat him.
You might have a good point.
I think he might just lose to those guys, but yeah.
Going back to Cav, though, 30 TDF wins, 15 Giro stage wins.
Yeah, he won a lot of Giro stages, too. Did he ever win a Vuelta stage?
I believe he had a couple of Vuelta stages as well.
Probably, yeah.
He was a world champion one year.
Yep.
And he won Milan-San Remo.
He did win Milan-San Remo, and that was a great race, too.
And a bunch of other stuff that he won in his time. So that is a pretty cool...
He also had a lot of success on the track, which was really the British formula for a time period.
Yeah.
It was start on the track, those guys came out, and he was a bona fide track star before he went to the road scene.
Wiggins, too, right?
Yep, Wiggins was there, G was there.
Now, those two teamed up for some track races, right?
They did, yeah. And then
Olympics,
I think,
was it?
Did Cav win? God, there was that 24-hour track race in Britain. That's a big deal.
I don't know.
I forget the name of it, but I think Cav may have won that. It's like a relay type race, but I don't know much about the track cycling world in Britain, but I know that he was big there.
Yeah, cool. So, yep, hat goes off to him for a great career if he is, in fact, hanging it up, but
absolutely
not my favorite.
All right, so the Giro podium, I do feel like I have to at least say this just to drive home the fact that, good God, I mean, we got João Almeida, which is the Deceuninck Quickstep young rider, Wilco Kelderman, so we at least know Wilco, but that's who, when you got Wilco Kelderman in this on the podium of a Grand Tour, it's a strange Grand Tour. Pello Bilbao, I do not know who that is. Posavivo, Nibali, Fogelsong in the next group. So
it just feels like a lot of B squad there.
It does. It feels very B squad, which I don't like because I love the Giro. But it's B squad also makes it a fun race because you got, oh my God, within 2 minutes, you got the entire top 15 is all within 2 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of it's because you
race.
can't double back after the Tour that fast.
No, there's no way.
So you got to pick your battles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got one more thing. I'm going to file this under both the Leadout news. I'm going to file this one under WTF.
Yeah.
Colnago. Did you hear about this?
No.
So that's the team for Pogacar was on.
Oh, gotcha.
Or Pogacar,
yeah.
sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bike that he rides. So
okay.
Did you guys hear about this?
No.
They're going to sell a replica bike. Not his bike, not the one that he won the Tour with.
Uh-huh.
They're going to sell a replica of his bike. You want to guess for how much?
$50,000.
No, I was going to say 20.
$30,000 for a replica Colnago.
Not the
the actual bike.
I wouldn't pay $30,000 for the actual thing. Even.
You would?
No. I wouldn't. I wouldn't even pay
$30,000
for the real thing. No.
Of course you wouldn't. That's crazy.
Why would I need that bike? Yeah.
$30,000 for a replica. Replica, not the actual bike.
Here's the thing with that brand.
Do I get a syringe with whatever he's been using too? Because that comes with the bike, or is that? It's a joke. Pogacar, I'm a big fan of yours. I think you're wonderful.
Big fans.
Big fan
also
today.
big fans of whatever medication you're on.
Yes, exactly. And I would like you to share it.
Yes.
That is insane. That bike, go back to what Matt said. It's probably something that some collector is going to want to say, hey, this is the bike that he won.
If I'm a Slovenian billionaire, I buy that tomorrow.
Yeah.
You think so?
I mean, there aren't that many world champions of anything coming out of Slovenia, right?
Is there a replica of any bike in history that you would want for $30,000?
Oh, don't even ask me that. You know the exact answer to that.
Lance?
I would. Oh, what would
you
be
pay
the
for
Lance
not
bike?
the bike that like the actual bikes?
A replica. I would definitely.
A replica.
Yes, absolutely. I would pay that much for a Lance replica.
Trek comes
bike.
out with a bike right now and
Not
say this is
$30,000.
I don't
would
have
pay
$30,000 sitting available right now.
But what if it was $5,000?
If I had money to $5,000,
for
that's
a
a
replica.
no-brainer.
For a replica.
Yeah. Oh
Why?
my gosh.
Or even what?
Why is that a no-brainer? It's $5,000 for
Because
something
it's Lance Armstrong.
If
Matt.
he's that much of a hero to you,
Oh, okay.
and you're going to put that up as like a trophy, I
Matt,
could think.
I've had a poster of Lance Armstrong in my room since I was like 10.
How much did that poster set you back?
Probably like $5.
Not $5,000.
Okay, so let's say that you had a little bit of money. And you're doing okay.
Okay.
How much money would you rationally pay for the actual bike that Pogacar won the Tour de France on?
The actual bike.
The actual bike, the one that he was on that you watched on TV. How much would you pay for that bike?
10 grand.
10 grand?
That's as high as I'd go. 10 grand.
Okay.
The bike legit, even like the off-the-shelf one, is probably 10 grand.
Yeah.
But
that's as much as I would pay for it.
I'd say it's probably more like 12 to 13.
Yeah,
but
you're probably right.
Yeah.
They'd probably want to sell it for at least 20, I'd imagine.
Oh, if it was his bike, I'm sure they're not going to
Well,
sell it
if
for
they're
20.
getting 30,000, like they're not going to put these bikes out there for sale for $30,000 unless they know that they're going to sell a
Someone's gonna
couple
buy
of them.
them, yeah.
That's
I mean,
not a couple.
if they actually put on the chopping block or the auction block or whatever it is, his actual bike, and said, "All right, to the highest bidder goes this bike. Go."
Someone will buy it for $40,000 or something stupid.
Do you know what he should do? Is just,
50.
God, man, if I was one of these cyclists, I would just
charity auction.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what a good person would do, yes. But that's so, I mean, like, I would just, so if I won 5 Tour de France's, I'd keep all those bikes, I wait 10 years, and then as soon as all the money from pro cycling is gone, which probably doesn't take too long, I'm selling all those bikes for like $40,000 each.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Send your kids to college.
My gosh, yeah. Win 5 tours, just that easy. That easy. Just go and win 5 tours.
It's
just
easy
go and
money.
win 5 tours.
Easy money.
$200,000.
I would say $200,000. So much money.
Just go win 5 tours.
I would say that it's, the time to strike is probably like right after you win it.
That's true, because people will.
Wait 10 years.
In 10 years, people may forget that. Well, unless Pogacar goes on and wins 5 or 6.
Billionaire might be looking at something else.
Because even I know these things. Here, let me ask a quiz question. Who won the 2006 Tour?
2006, I will say.
That wasn't. God, what that crap was
What were
his
the
name?
brothers? Who are the brothers?
The Schlecks did not
The
win during
Schlecks?
that era.
Okay.
No.
No.
Landis?
There you go.
Floyd?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Floyd, 2007
The
was.
Schlecks were much later.
It was the coming out party for a very young.
Condor?
Yes.
Yep.
2008. The reason that Lance came back in 2009.
Oh. Contador was on his team.
Carlos Sastre.
Okay.
As soon as in 2008 Carlos Sastre won, Lance said he was like, I can't let this guy win the Tour. He's like, I'm coming back. That's how much he knew the pace had dropped off. Because I love Carlos Sastre because I genuinely believe he's the only modern era cyclist to win the Tour de France completely clean.
Really?
He was known in the peloton as Mr. Clean. That was actually his nickname in the peloton.
Interesting.
Yeah. Very, very morally north-driven person.
Yeah.
Awesome guy. Yeah.
Here's a little thing we can maybe talk about next week, but have you heard the scuttlebutt coming out about the doctor from Team Sky and the testosterone?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yep.
Broke, destroyed laptop and burned documents or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's incredibly suspicious. That's
Yeah.
not an accident. Yeah.
Yep.
Sketch.
Yep.
Not shocking, though.
Unfortunate. So
Cav, retire now. I still hope Cavendish
Right.
doesn't get mixed up in that.
all right, how about we jump into our topic of the day? You guys ready for that?
Yes.
Ready.
All right. Gonna throw you guys a bone. You guys ready for this?
Oh, no. What is this?
You guys didn't get your triathlon takeover this year. Wow. So let's talk what it takes to get into triathlon and how to progress as an athlete over the course of time.
What it takes to
What does it
be a
take?
triathlete, Matt.
Oh,
What does it take?
Oh God.
This is Triathlon Hour with Matt and Evan.
Triathlon talk.
Takeover.
So here's the real bummer. Last weekend was supposed. Well, yeah. So this
This
last
past
weekend
weekend,
was supposed to be Kona, the World Championship,
Would
the
have
one
been.
and only, the
I
full
know.
Ironman distance World Championship.
I love that race.
It's a great race.
Who do you think would have won?
Yeah.
On the guy side, who do you think? Have we already had this discussion on
Evan
the podcast?
Price.
Jan wins.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
So
if he was healthy.
here's the question: is so Jan had a crash.
Yeah. Let's say he's not healthy, because I agree. I think he would have won.
Brownlee.
Really?
Yeah, I think he figured it out after the first year.
That's a lot to figure out.
Tough
He's way
to
off.
it's tough to bet against Alistair on a 1-day basis.
Sure.
He's really fast. Yeah.
Wasn't last year.
He was not, and he screwed up last year. But I think that there's a learning curve year at Kona. This is coming from somebody who never raced at Kona. I'm talking about Kona to be like, oh, trust me, man, that heat out there is terrible.
Me, we know Kona.
This one time in Ohio, it was like warm, and I went for a bike ride.
It was hard.
And it was hard. No, I think that it would have been a really interesting year in the sense that I think Ali would have raced it differently without Jan there, and I think he would have raced it smarter.
You still, I mean, I think that there still could be a bike train. You've got people like Lionel Sanders. You've got Cam Worth. I think they could get out of the water a little bit late and still have that train come through. And
but
that can make for an interesting race.
This is how confident Ali is he'd probably come out first or second. He'd be right on Josh's tail. Josh Amberger being the fastest swimmer in Ironman.
Yep.
Ali would come out with him. If he wanted to just let the bike train catch him, he could, because he can ride with those guys too.
True.
So he knows he's going to outrun Cam and Lionel.
Yep.
If he's smart. If he's dumb, he's not going to outrun them. So if he wasn't feeling good or felt like he was isolated out front, God, he could just pull up, sit up, eat,
true.
wait for the train to come and get him.
Drink, eat,
Yep.
drink. Yeah.
Hang out with Cam for a little bit.
But train isn't going to get you. You can't sit in their draft. You're just using them as like a mental pacer, right?
There's some.
But this is the big debate with Konas. There's
draft.
You're not drafting, but you are, because even if you're the legal six bike links. So six.
I think
still
it's
catching some
10.
draft advantage.
You are. Yeah, you are.
Was it like 10 or 15?
And there's like a mental draft. I mean, they talk about and any cyclist knows this too. If you're pacing somebody and you're behind them a certain amount, but you can look at them, it makes the pacing easier.
Well, and there's a draft.
There's a draft,
basically.
especially if you're sitting like third or fourth wheel, right?
Yeah,
you're
absolutely. It's an even better draft. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, there's one of the years when Patrick Lange ran out of his mind and ran like 2:37 or something crazy like that for the marathon.
I think it was faster than that.
It may have been 2:36. Honestly, it was quick.
Anyway,
I believe he sat in the draft for most of that bike ride. Yeah. I think he sat in a big group and saved his legs. I don't think Patrick Lange has the ability to go out there and do what a Lionel Sanders can do on the bike and then jump off and run sub 240.
Yep.
Jan can, because
Jan
is basically Superman. So
yes,
there's any race that he's in, if you don't want to think hard on who's going, just say Jan, because you're probably going to be right. Yeah. That guy does not lose races frequently.
Yeah, he is a all-around stud.
Now, bringing this back to cycling, though, is Matt had mentioned before, we have the Cam Worth, who is actually a team Ineos Grenadiers rider.
He's on the Ineos, whatever they got on their laptop system.
No, I think he was off of Team Sky at that time. Those were the years he was missing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But yeah, so it's interesting having a bona fide professional cyclist in the field, because there have been professional cyclists
that have come over.
You look at I can't believe I just forgot his name. I've actually raced the guy in Santa Cruz a couple years ago. I'll think of it here in a little bit.
There have been a couple people that have come over.
Yeah.
There's been some that have come over after testing positive and getting booted from cycling.
Andrew Talansky. That's the guy I was just thinking
Talansky.
of. Talansky.
Well, Talansky has not tested positive.
Super nice guy, by the way.
Yeah, he seems cool.
I actually talked to him in like the transition rack.
Is he done with triathlon?
No, he raced Santa Cruz last year.
Okay.
I was surprised to see him. So I asked him, I was like, hey, you gonna race next year? He's like, yeah, I just like jumping into races just for fun. But he did tell me before this. He was like, have been running much, gonna be honest. Really have not been running that much. And he blew up the bike course and then started on the run. But still a great athlete.
But he ran in college or something, or he ran cross country. He was a good runner.
He did. He was a very good runner.
So what does it take to get into triathlon, boys?
Okay, I have
professional bike career. No, I'm joking.
I have some theories on this. I was thinking about this on the way over. I think a lot of people come to triathlon through one of the three sports.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And whichever way they come to the sport is kind of very, very different in how you would probably suggest them to kind of improve upon their triathlon results.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you come from a swimming background,
you
don't have to worry about swimming that much, but there's a real key endurance aspect to the sport, which you might be missing, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of swimmers, if you think about it, their races are 1 minute or less.
long distance is 5 to 6 minutes there.
Yeah, long distance. 5
You think
6
about
minutes.
a long distance swimmer at those younger ages is going to be doing the 500.
And they may have two
And they're
practices
fast, so
a
that's
day.
like 5 minutes, yeah.
I know. They may have 2 practices a day, and so they
Yep.
may have a lot of endurance. But what I think they're missing is that like 2 hour, 3 hour
Yeah.
kind of like I can,
Yeah.
I can turn on the gear after that
Yep.
point. And so they don't have that.
And this is too. So Matt knows this coming from running is
Right.
So look at how a swim workout is always built. It is lactate threshold recovery is what those kids have an elite level at when they come into the sport. Translates pretty well to cycling actually. Now doesn't translate great to time trialing cycling, but very much to actually cycling racing, which is
Right.
why those kids excel at draft legal biking because they come in from the swim, and what's a typical swim workout day? Oh, we did 20 by 100, leaving at some fast time that makes triathletes go like, oh my gosh, this 12-year-old's this fast? Like, yes, they are that fast.
Yeah.
But what they don't do is what a young cross-country runner builds aerobically, which is muscular and aerobic strain for an hour.
Right.
That's not happening in swimming very often.
Right.
And I'll argue that pretty because I've had this talk before with people and watched some videos and thought through it from a physiological standpoint. A runner at a young age is put under more aerobic strain than any other endurance athlete at young ages.
Right. Except for maybe cycling, but they don't do a lot of cycling.
Yeah, I'll still put runners more just because a young runner, let's say you go for an hour run.
Aerobic.
Yeah. So let's say you're that 14, 15-year-old and now your long run's like an hour and a half. And a young swimmer or a young cyclist is not going to be under aerobic and muscular continuous strain for an hour and a half.
I see what you're saying.
Now, that means that runner's lactate threshold recovery, if they haven't been training specifically for track, may not be nearly as good as that swimmer or that cyclist. But it is definitely that aerobic base is strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, very strong.
The other side of the coin for swimmers is that their form for swimming is so good.
Oh, so
that
good.
if you don't come from a swimming background, I'm not saying you're dead in the water, but like
you're kind of dead in the water.
It's ugly. It's ugly, and you're never
can speak
going.
from experience.
You're basically
hard.
you're almost like never gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's going to be a ceiling on your swimmability
right.
because
I really can't think of anyone that's like started as an adult swimmer and become good. Like I can think of 0 people.
Yeah, I can think of like a couple pros that like I know they didn't swim when they were young, but they
they're not
swam, but they weren't like they're like that guy's not going to jump into a pro swim group and be able to hang at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think if you're coming from running, we talk. I was just saying like, okay, swimmers are missing that kind of ultra long aerobic endurance stuff. I think if you're coming from running, you might be missing a little bit of that as well.
Depends on the distances that you focused on too. Yeah.
So I did tons of distance for running. Right, did a lot of marathon
10K,
type stuff.
10K specialist. Yeah.
And I noticed when I started cycling that you get me out there, and I remember specifically struggling with like the first kind of like 40-mile, 50-mile bike rides, which if you're thinking about it, that's 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like,
you were not used to having to use glycogen 3 hours into a ride
because a marathon's 2.5 hours when you're fast.
Yep.
And then 3 hours, you never get there.
No.
And a marathon's also a ridiculously long run for a 10K runner.
Yeah.
Or a 5K runner.
Very few college runners are like, what are you doing this summer? Oh, I'm going to go try to peak for a marathon. No, nobody's doing
absolutely
that.
not. And so you don't ever. So long run, 2 hours.
Yep.
And so when you start to dip your toes into 3 hours, that's getting ugly.
It is.
So I think that the cyclist coming into triathlon has that strategic advantage of like, yeah, I'm not going to be swimming great. Yeah, I'm not going to run well, but I'm not going to like stop and start walking because I've completely hit the wall.
Exactly.
Like they know how to kind of handle calorically that like wall or that, ultra long time frame because we have juniors that are doing 100-mile rides.
Oh yeah.
So although that's I'm sure difficult for them, but their body's learning like here's how you can
here's how to fat metabolize.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're becoming good at it. Yeah.
It's
if I had like it's interesting. If I had a kid that purely came from cycling, like 100% that was his only experience, came in from cycling, he's like 19, 20, let's say, and is like, I want to get in triathlon, I'd be
let's call him Nels.
Let's call him Nels. Yeah. Let's call him Nels. I would say your best distance, I was like, if you like if their one goal was like, I want to be really good at triathlon, what needs to be my distance? I was like, we're taking the next 5 years and you're going to be a 73 full guy. Because I think that's where the cyclists have the best advantage. You're talking long days.
Right.
The bike is very much sets up the run in those distances. in the sprint and Olympic distance, which is what I think most people are familiar with. Well, maybe not listen to this. I know a lot of our iron people listen to this.
Sure.
But, I mean, when you're talking about that sprint and Olympic distance, to race that at an elite level, you need to not just be a good runner. You need to be probably a collegiate runner.
Right.
Like,
You got to be good.
you got to be, like...
And you have to be a good swimmer.
To run 15s off the bike means that your 5K PR needs to be comfortably in the mid-14s because you're going to lose about a minute coming off the bike.
Pretty rarefied air, actually.
Yeah, you're talking D1 collegiate running style. Like, that's where you need to sit. And I know that's scary for some kids who are like, oh, I want to get in draft legal racing, and I have to show them, like, well, when you look at the national scale, these kids are fast. I mean, they're God forbid when they start moving to the iron distances, like, I know. What, are we just going to have, like, amateurs running 110, 112? It's like, to be a pro, you got to go, like, 350. I don't know.
Yikes.
It's going to be scary. Yeah.
What do you think about the runner coming onto triathlon? A lot of people will say, like, that's, and I kind of agree, but they'll say, like, runner coming into triathlon, that's the way, that's the ticket, because it is the third event. So
it's the toughest. It's where you lose the most time potentially. It's where your race can be made or broken. Yeah.
And a lot of the times, so I kind of agree with it. I think you'll say you had a bad 5K at the end of your sprint triathlon, and you means you went like 18 minutes for 5K.
Yeah.
And they're like, holy moly, everyone else in the field went 24 minutes for 5K. Like, how did you do this on your first 5K? So it has that aspect to it of, even though you're not doing what you normally would do, it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some truth to kind of runners do well in triathlon.
And a lot like swimming too, there are adaptations that happen in young runners that, so there's a reason that, I mean, a really fast triathlete is pretty uncommon when you look at it from young ages, because that means that you developed as a swimmer and as a younger runner at a young age, which is possible. And there are kids that do it.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy, when you're talking from musculoskeletal development,
they're very opposite sides of the spectrum.
Yeah. You're kind of battling yourself there, because what makes you a good swimmer? Very flexible ankles.
Right. I want
a lot
everything
of laxity.
To be loose and
loose.
I can move the water well.
What makes you a good runner?
Tight.
Stiffness and
like,
spring. Yeah.
It's such opposite sides of the spectrum. And so you don't see a ton of runners that are good at swimming or swimmers that are good at running.
And when they are, you see them in the Olympics and the triathlon. You see Vincent Lewis, and you see, Allie Brownlee and guys like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when someone's like, how do you get good at triathlon, the original question, I think it's, if you're starting up, it kind of depends on which sport you're coming from. Mm-hmm. Now, one question would be, like, what if they're not coming from any sport at all?
Yeah.
Which,
I didn't do any of those three sports. Well, I did bike racing as I got into triathlon.
In some ways,
I was a soccer player, really.
You're the least. I think that you're probably like the least applicable person to answer this question, because you started young and you're good, and you've, it's not like you're ever had this aerobic capacity problem. Like, you've just had it and developed it. And whereas, like, if
I really wish somebody would got me into running at a younger age, at a higher, like, really wish somebody should have been like, you need to quit soccer. You're not good at soccer.
Well, I also think that there's good team dynamics to running, and it's like you can really focus on it and get really good at running if you want to. Whereas I think it's harder for cycling and triathlon. Mm-hmm. But swimming and running have that piece to it that you can really dive into.
Very organized team sports already.
But I think the person that doesn't come from a sport, I think their biggest question mark is going to be aerobic endurance for the longer type races.
In general.
Like Olympic race, they're probably going to be out there for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. That's a long time. So that's a lot of aerobic capacity development.
Especially if you grew up playing football or baseball.
Yep.
Anything like that.
Do we know anyone that played baseball?
Maybe.
What's a good pre-sport to cycling? Baseball.
Sam Long, football.
So football.
It can work sometimes.
I
think that there's more time that has to be invested in just being like, you got to teach your body to be able to go 3 hours.
Well, and Sam Long's a good one to talk about when we're talking about, like, okay, you got somebody who really didn't come from a high level of any three of those sports coming in. Now, he raced triathlon when he was pretty young, though. Mm-hmm. I think his first Ironman, he was like 19 or 18.
That's crazy.
He was crazy young. I think he said he wanted to try one at 17, but they didn't let him sign up because you have to be 18.
Yeah.
And he just signed up and did it. The kid was a genetic freak from the start, because, he was a football player that all of a sudden just decided, I'm going to go into ultra endurance things, and just clicked and did it.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, he's fast all of a sudden. So
magic.
Yeah, I think, if you're getting into triathlon and you have no experience in any three of those sports, the very first thing as much as a lot of us would like to say you need to get in the pool and get safe in the water, I would actually say get safe on the bike first.
Yeah.
Because the bike is going to be where you can safely develop more of that aerobic base without risking overuse injury or hating the pool.
That's very true.
If you try to, I mean, everybody remember, I still remember when I started actually swim training. I was probably 18, I think, when I actually got into a pool and I was like, I'm going to swim laps. And I remember a 500 day feeling like, oh my God, this is impossible. It's like, how long is the sprint? 800?
I hear a lot of people talking about swimming, like all of these very good runners, they do fine on the bike. And then they talk about swimming and they're talking about how they go down and back and they're gassed. Yeah. And they're like, they'll say, so I'm just not a swimmer. And it's like, well,
you haven't tried.
That's really because, one, it's different muscles, but number two, your form is just way off. Like your aerobic capacity is there, but you're dragging through the water. If any of us swim that way, we'd be gassed,
it'd be terrible.
right?
Yeah,
because
it'd be
it's
terrible.
like you have to put your body on top of the water, or else you're going nowhere. And even if your body's correctly placed, it's still going to be a little bit hard.
I watch these CrossFitters swim. And I'm exhausted watching them swim. I'm like, wow, that guy's capacity for pain is incredible because his efficiency is absolutely terrible.
A nightmare. They're
or
swinging
like,
their arms 1,000 miles an hour and they're going nowhere.
Or like a few years ago when CrossFit did like a mountain bike race thing or a cyclocross-ish race. It was basically, they were like on mountain bikes doing it. They really did not get the idea of what cyclocross actually is. But you're watching these guys go up the little hills, and I'm like, "Whew, man! If I was 240 of shredded muscle too, that would be a hard hill. That'd be a very." And they're like falling off the bikes and then running them up there.
Yeah. So I think definitely that, you mentioned you can definitely develop that aerobic capacity on the bike. I think kind of figuring out swimming, potentially having someone help you, like a coach or someone like that with that body position stuff, is going to be extremely helpful because the tendency is to swim with your head out of the water.
Yep.
Which is real, real bad.
Yeah.
You put your head up
Absolutely.
and your legs come down and you're swimming through the water like you're standing up.
Yeah.
You put your face down and your butt comes up and all of a sudden you're swimming on top of the water.
Yeah.
So there's some
swimming downhill. That's what one of my old coaches used to say, swim downhill. Yeah.
I think that's so natural when you grew up swimming, but
you
for
don't even have to think
everyone
about
else,
it.
everyone else, it's like that takes some time to figure out. So,
I know. It's funny for me talking swim technique with Maddie Wick because it's really funny that like
she probably can't put her finger on it.
She has no idea.
Yeah.
She's just so good. She's like natural. Nope. She's like, I don't know. I just swim.
I've always been doing it.
She's like, how do you increase your stroke rate? I don't know. I just move my arms faster and it just does it right. It's like it's almost that she's going to be a great coach when she's very good at like understanding and like working with kids, but her greatest challenge is going to be realizing why she's good in the water.
Yeah. I think
she's got to come a year where she's like, I'm not sure why I'm fast in the water. I need to figure out why I'm fast.
But don't you think it's that same way with like really good runners?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where they're like, I just push off I don't think about it. I just run. And everyone, like you hear this all the time, like, okay,
how do I run faster?
I've got to use the Maffetone method to do this and all this. And you're like, nope. The good runners just run fast.
This was my biggest issue with. I have a lot of, I'll say, middle-aged triathletes coming in.
Sure. Let's call him Matt.
Let's call him Matt.
They come in. Why am I not fast? You push 60 watts on your last Zwift ride. I don't know why I'm not getting faster.
Tried to run a 6-minute mile. Didn't feel good. Why? So, there's chi running was a big movement.
Yes.
How many years ago would you say chi running really came around? 10 years ago? Yeah. I think it was around 10 years ago. The idea behind chi running is actually flawed. So where it comes from a actual structure of its theory.
Sure.
It goes to the theory that barefoot runners, which is what, we all come from, and, there's still tribes out there. There's well documented for everyone born to run that they run a lot of miles on basically their bare feet, which is amazing.
Tarahumara?
Exactly. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. The one thing that people always forget about that was like, you're 45 and have never run barefoot. There's some musculoskeletal things that happen at young ages when you do that. But that aside, because I still believe you could translate to a barefoot run if you really committed to it at the age of 45. Would never tell anybody to do it, but you could. What they're forgetting is that there's actually been research showing that barefoot or non-shod runners actually change their foot strike frequently, depending on surface, how fast they're going,
absolutely, and
even subjectively how they feel that day. Right. So if you look at a runner, even as good as like all those Kenyans that train in Kipla got together, like, I mean, there is a real science to if you are a good runner, your body's going to find the most efficient pattern. And when you're a really good runner and you run 150 miles a week fast, I guarantee when you look at, let's use Kipchoge as the example because everybody loves talking about Kipchoge, his early morning just shakeout run form versus his banging out 20 by 1K on the track.
Sure.
Not the same form.
Totally different. Yeah.
Different form. So if you're always worried about, I need to be soft and up on my toes all the time, it's like your Achilles is going to hate you. And two, that's not a efficient way to run at slower paces most of the time. So we need to stop demonizing certain run forms and saying that's a bad run form and saying, why is that person running that way?
Right.
Oh, well, they just did a track workout yesterday and this is their 4-mile easy run.
Yep.
And their quads are shot. So it's like, okay, that's why their body went to that pattern.
Sure.
Instead of trying to demonize and just like you said, like, how do I run faster? It's like run more consistently, better and faster occasionally, and also slower. It's a really complex answer.
Yeah, it sounds complex, but it's not as bad as you think it is.
It's not.
Basically do speed work occasionally. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The overthinking of your actual run form can be exhausting. It really can.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that trips up a lot of people.
It does.
And because it's like they're looking at their miles, per minute. It's like 9 minutes per mile. How do I get this to 8? Those guys that are doing those marathons, those Kenyans, are going sub 5.
Yeah.
Like, that
How do
doesn't
I
make
get
any
there?
sense.
Yeah.
Like, their form must be better. Well, I'll just change my form. Well, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Or else we'd all just change our form.
Exactly.
So
I just watched a really cool, we'll get off this and back to triathlon in a second, but I just watched this really cool run gait comparison between Joshua Cheptegei and Kamwara. So when Kamwara set the half marathon world record, 58:01. He did it in Copenhagen, 58:01.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was a couple years ago
That's
when Kamwara did it. You watch Kamwara run, there are things I've told people that probably are contributing to their injuries that are in his run form.
Sure.
Not a smooth run form at all. Not even like, not something I look at and be like, that's what you should strive for.
Did you see like the 10K world record on the track, and the guy had like the most massive pronation?
Yes,
and it's just
that's
like
where I was going. Yeah,
and it's
Cheptegei. Yeah,
it's like doesn't look good.
I loved
Whatever.
I loved one of my PT friends took that screenshot and gave an explanation as to, people were freaking out about that. They're like, how is his coach not seeing this? Oh, I saw one comment where like, this guy's an injury waiting to happen. I was like, really? He just set the 5K and 10K world record. I'm pretty sure he's doing okay. What was amazing about that is, so his body is so springy. He runs at such a high turnover rate, and so his stride length is so long for how fast his cadence is, which is why he's able to run 4:11 pace for a 10K. But what's happening is, if you watch his stiffness through his lower leg, if now in a recreational runner who's just getting in, if you see overpronation is a strange word because we actually don't have a value that would classify you as under overpronation. So it's a visual thing. It's subjective. He would definitely fall under visually overpronation.
Right.
His entire midfoot collapses down.
It does look like those shoes aren't doing him as much good, but I mean, they had spikes on them too, right? So I mean,
but I wouldn't want to take away any of his spring.
Shoot.
That's a
yeah,
thing.
You don't change what's not broken.
Don't give him a heel. Let that Achilles just load all the way down and spring out. And he had no internal rotation, or imagine knock knees as you're running.
Yeah.
Nothing up the chain.
Yeah.
Smooth. So he gets all of his spring from that pronation load, and then his Achilles and his post-tib tendon just spring him forward each step. And he's so solid up above that. It's like,
and if you see a lot of these guys, there is not a lot of muscle there.
No.
It's pretty interesting. Their legs look like twigs.
Yeah, we're talking tendons and bone. That's basically what they're a tight, balled up gastroc soleus that squeezes just enough to give that Achilles a nice spring, and they fly. Yeah. So if you're looking at that recreational runner who, let's say, has that level of pronation, you're going to see collapse up the chain. Right. You're seeing the knee collapse in, the hips collapse in, the hip dad side to side. Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah.
That's where, as a PT, I'd look at that and say, like, we got some things to work on. Not that I'm going to say, hey, don't do that, because I know they're not doing it on purpose. But it's, if I watch Joshua Cheptegei run, I'm not going to go up to him and be like, man, you really need to stop pronating so much.
We can take another minute off your time.
Yeah.
We'll fix you right
just
up.
let me give you an orthotic that gives you 3 inches to that heel, and let's see what happens.
All right, we were way off the mark. What were we talking about? Triathlon?
Triathlon
Takeover?
We talked a lot about swimming form there because we are a trending podcast for swimming.
That's true.
I just tried there to make us a trending podcast for running. Let's see if that works.
Could happen.
I know how Google and Facebook work now. If I say the word running enough, running. We're going to make it on a Google search.
Alexa is listening, right? Maybe Amazon
Alexa,
too.
running.
So I will say that I think that a lot of people are struggling with the swim as far as fear of triathlon.
Yeah.
And so one of the goals of my YouTube channel is to get people into triathlon. So I've thought about this a lot. And I've got a video up there talking about like breathing techniques, like how you can kind of work on your breathing and making sure that your face is in the water. And when you're breathing, you're actually trying to do like half of the water, per goggle, your line here this way, so that you're breathing just out of the side of your mouth and you're trying to keep your head down as opposed to keeping your head up. But what else can people do to kind of get started in triathlon? How do you get them over the hump of like...
Once we're past this era of one person per lane swimming, joining a master swim group is great.
Sure.
That was what I did early on. And it was, you get somebody who's on the deck generally who knows swimming, regardless of what state you're listening to this or country. I mean, I like to believe that most master swim coaches are great because I've met 3 or 4 of them in my lifetime and they were all awesome. My very first one, Jenny Noga, swam Jenny swam at Miami of Ohio University, I think is where she swam. Great swimmer, absolutely great, and was just a good family friend and ran this big masters group that was an absolute blast. But that's where, you have to understand it's going to be a process. So if you can find a group where you're like, this is going to be a group I know long-term I'll progress with, because you can look and be like, oh, there's 3 guys right over here who said they've been doing this for 4 years and weren't able to swim a single lap before they started.
Yeah,
that's
huge.
And then understanding that with swimming, just like Matt described, that may sound overwhelming to be like, oh my gosh, I got to like half my eye out and like breathe out something out. That sounds impossible.
Don't overthink it,
It's with time, it will come.
Right.
And if you're impatient with triathlon, that is when it's not fun.
And I meant that more as like there are drills that you can do to practice
to get you in that position.
But at the same time, I still think you're right. Like, don't overthink it. Like, eventually it comes naturally.
Yeah.
So
get in with a good coach.
Jake, question for you.
Bring it.
You have a lot of people that are comfortable swimming. They, maybe they grew up swimming, maybe they grew up open water swimming in lakes, or maybe they were part of pool teams or whatever growing up in high school, or they've gone out for running. Running is not a scary sport.
Nope.
But biking is a scary sport. So I think maybe that could be another hiccup for someone saying like, I want to do this triathlon. I know I can swim. I know I can run. Biking, I'm out there on the road. I don't feel comfortable. I don't really have a bike. Do I need to buy one of those bikes with the, aero bars? Do I need a pointy helmet? Like, what do I don't know what to do. Cycling is so intimidating.
Yeah.
What do you tell that person?
That's a good question. For a lot of people, like I'll use my wife as an example. She, definitely she can ride a bike. When we first got her started, because she's one of these people that is somewhat new to the sport of triathlon, and she's given it
she's doing great.
The old college go, and she started out just by pretty much riding on a trainer just to get her fitness up, and then
that's smart way to start.
Yeah, and then it was like, all right, I need to transition to being outside, and that was scary for her because. Obvious reasons, cars. I mean, that's a huge thing. And it's not just cars either. It's like riding around other people. That scared her. Being in close proximity to other people, that scared her. Being clipped in, that scared her. Being able to start and stop scared her. Yep. And at the end of the day, the only way that you can get over that is to actually go out and do it. Now, I don't recommend that you go out and do this necessarily on your own. Go find a group of like-minded friends. You can find a team or a club or...
She's lucky that she has that really good group of people that she is
awesome
tight with.
People.
Yeah. So,
But at the end of the day, if you can just find one person who has experience in teaching you a little bit about how to handle your bike, how to ride in traffic, where to put yourself, that makes all of the difference in the world. And then going back to the other question of, do you need one of these high-end specialty bikes that, it's built for doing triathlons and time trialing and pointy helmets and arrows? No, you don't need any of that stuff. At the beginning, you just need a bicycle that is safe and sound that you can go out and ride and get comfortable on.
Mountain bike even works if you want to work with
that. And that's what I tell people, like, I'm
all for people doing triathlon on a mountain bike.
Me too.
Because it means more people are getting into it.
Me too. I tell people, don't go buy a bike until you've done a triathlon or two. See if you like it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then and you have some $2,000 bike.
I've been trying to tell people this more and more is if you're just getting into the sport, like I think some really competitive people get into the sport, especially if they came from like I'll use Carlos as an example from football.
Yeah.
Now Carlos is a strange brand though, because Carlos right off the bat was like, I'm going to be committed and I want to get fast at this one day.
Yeah.
But he's also very cognizant of the process and how long that takes.
Sure.
He's a rare bird. Not everybody's cognizant of that process. But a lot of people come from football, baseball as kids, basketball, thinking I want to translate into the sport and be good like I was at those sports right away. Give yourself like I'm going to say 2 years to like just be able to do it.
So that's
to
hard.
be able to bike and be able to swim.
That's hard. Like, there's a lot of people out there. Carlos is probably one of them as well. I'm one of them. We're competitive.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to go out there and get my backside handed to me.
Yeah.
Right out of the gate. I want to go out there and do as well as I possibly can. And it's almost, I'm not going to say demoralizing or a deterrent to want to continue doing the sport. So it becomes difficult to want to connect and make that commitment to doing your first race because you don't want to get your butt handed to you.
I think that there is, the other side of the coin of that is that there's real value to not being the best. Like, let's say
absolutely, I 100% agree with you.
Let's just say that you are a complete stud cyclist, like someone at this table, who tends to do very well in all the races that he ever does on a bike, whether that's cyclocross, mountain bike, or road bike. But, like, let's say you enter a stand-up paddleboard competition. Like, there's real value in being like, I'm not going to be the best at this. Like, you're going to get your butt kicked, I would imagine.
Yep.
Like, and I think that you would still have fun.
Yep.
And I think that there's real value going into the competition thinking that. Like, if I like, there's things I like. Like, I like rock climbing. I haven't done it in like 10 years. But like, I would enjoy that process of being like, I'm not good at this. It's like, okay not to be good.
Yeah, you're like doing something. You're like,
I'm not. There's just it's just nice to be like not good at this.
On a different scale, I actually think I kind of experienced that this year with. I've done the Olympic and 73 distances for so long, even within the sport of triathlon itself, moving into different types. So I just saw that Matt Hansen did a really cool race. He did a 10K swim marathon race. That was the race. You did a 10K swim, you jumped out, and you did a marathon. Sorry to all the cycling listeners. They took out that whole middle part. But, I mean, that would be a race that probably some really good triathletes would jump into and all of a sudden not be the best guy in the race. Matt Hansen's a beast, so he was. But, I mean, there's, for me, it was jumping up to the full iron distance. In a simulated race, but if that had been race day, I would have sucked. Would have been terrible that day. For like,
you would have had a bad
you've
day.
been great
for
to
my
about
field,
mile 8 of the run.
For my field, for my field, I would have not had a good day. But that's like, I mean, you're talking about even within the sport. Like Matt was trying aqua bikes all of a sudden.
Yep.
When you came into the sport, running was the one thing you were good at in the sport.
The idea of an aqua bike would have been hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Like.
And then, so it's...
Why would you do that? You'd be horrible at that.
It's like even within the sport. I mean, if you come in as a cross-country runner, let's say, you can do a duathlon.
Yep.
That'd be dumb because I think they're incredibly difficult. I think duathlon's the hardest thing in triathlon.
I don't know.
Which is ironic that we always like duathlon's like underneath triathlon because it's basically taken out, one entire sport away from it. But those are hard races. It's new challenges. But I think that's the cool thing with somebody getting into triathlon. It's a lot like cycling in the sense that, you're scared of being on the road and you really don't want a road race. Well, we have mountain bike races, gravel races.
Or
there's Grand Fondo rides too, which take out that
swim
scary
run
part of it.
The swim run races look really cool.
Oh, they look like so much fun.
They're like these
island hopping
trail
things.
running and like island hopping with swimming stuff. Like it looks awesome.
Crazy.
We need to do that sometime.
I would really love to go do one of those.
Do it.
We're like tethered together during it, aren't we?
They have some that are tethered together.
We need to do that tethered together. we absolutely have to tether together to do that.
I think that would be fun.
So if we were to go back and just create a list, like here is a list of what we recommend you think about using, and just call it best practices. Call it like these are the items that you need.
How to get
started.
Yep.
What is that starter package going to look like for a new person coming over to triathlon?
Swim goggles and a swim cap. Boom. There's your swim.
Okay, talking
but
about
I
like
see
gear
people.
Or...
Well, yeah. So let's just start with the swim. So swim goggles and cap; those are the rhetorical things that you definitely need. But you probably need a gym membership.
Need a gym membership.
Access to a pool.
I'll say a gym membership, or really, if you live in this region, you actually wouldn't need a gym membership, in my opinion.
Are you going to go swim Fallen Leaf Lake in February?
There are guys that do that actually. There are. Now, you would need a wetsuit and probably a little bit of experience as a swimmer. I would not suggest anybody do that without some experience as a swimmer. But there are open water swimmers that basically go year round.
So let's say that typically speaking, it's going to be a working person, or somebody that's busy being a stay-at-home mom or dad, and that just doesn't have the time because of kids. Yeah. So I'm not going to be able to go out and swim at Fallen Leaf Lake in the middle of February when it gets dark at 5 o'clock
That's
or
true.
4:30.
Yeah,
I'm not swimming in the dark. I'm sorry,
Ooh,
it's not
that'd
going
be
to happen. So I'm going to need some sort of access because there's only one way that I can improve that swim stroke, and that's with repetition by working with somebody. But I'm going to probably need a gym membership. So
do your local YMCA. That's where I started because they always have they always have master swim groups. So I would go local Y.
I need to find probably a group of people that I could swim with, whether that be a master's program or kind of like what you guys put together last year for the triathlon team.
Yeah,
you guys went and rented out a whole entire facility, and you brought in some coaching, pool side coaching, and that was really well received. And I know that because my wife was out there doing it with a lot of her friends, and they loved that. That paid big dividends. And
was a lot of the mother runners
that gave her
in,
a lot of confidence to actually go over, and she started swimming at 24-hour fitness in the pools over there, and she started working on it, and her times have gotten better, her swims have gotten longer, and she's still consistently doing it to this day. So what else do you need for swimming? What else do you need to start thinking about
for swimming? You know, goggles, and you don't even need a swim cap.
And really,
goggles,
if you go to the
I would
pool,
say some sort of swimsuit, like jammers or something
what
like
about
that.
like a watch or something to?
Nope, you don't need it.
Don't need it.
Don't need
really
it.
true swimmers won't swim with a watch. Yeah,
and
but
honestly, you don't really need.
big for triathletes.
You don't need a watch for triathlon.
I want you to say that in front of all of your swimming watch videos.
Subscribers, you don't need a watch.
The next video, reasons not to listen to my.
I should actually make a video like you don't need a watch for triathlon.
But they're nice to have. Video. And what's the benefit of having a watch, Matt?
Well, you can track everything, and you can, when you're tracking it, you can start to work on improving it. So
gotcha.
That's that's with anything, right? Like you can, a lot of times people are doing these triathlons to finish, which you might not care about your time at all, but as soon as you do, and you want to improve, you want to improve your distance, so you need to track your distance. You want to improve your times, so you got to start tracking that stuff. If you want to, and just general health improvements, you can start tracking heart rates and resting heart rates and much more.
What percentage of people, we'll just say for the local races here, what percentage of people go out there just to finish and have fun versus the people that are being competitive racing against the clock and others?
That is a great question. I think it's a large percentage of people go there to just finish a triathlon.
Because I can't say that about cycling. When you show up to a race, you're typically there to be competitive and do as best as you possibly can.
I'd say it's probably an 80-20 split in triathlon.
80%, like, we're just there to finish.
Yeah.
Just
really. I won't say it's there to finish, but they're just to do the triathlon. Like the goal is to be at the triathlon and do it. I guess to finish, yeah. And then probably 20% are competitive in their age group or overall.
So he's saying which are competitive. I think there's also people that are trying to be competitive with their their own times. Yeah. So it's a weird line to draw. Like
that's true.
It's hard to draw a line.
Most people in triathlon though are competitive against their past times.
Are you saying
I'd say most are
people
trying to
that are trying to improve their time?
That's competitive. If you're trying to improve your time.
Then maybe it's more like
50-50 then probably.
Or maybe even, 40,
it may be 80-20 the other way, because I do know most triathletes are like, they're talking about that last race they did at that distance.
Maybe. It's hard to say, but it's way more significant number of people that are trying to just finish
depends
than
on if you're
like
at
cycling.
Depends on if you're at a local
race
or an Ironman race.
But But if you think about a century ride or any of those Grand
I don't call those a race. I call those an event.
They're
not
Grand
races.
Fondo.
Yeah, but they're not. I agree. But some small percentage of people are going to race them.
Yeah,
and that would be you.
Yeah,
triathlon should start a movement of doing like Grand Fondos.
But I kind of feel like
that's loosely organized.
I kind of feel like we're already there. Yeah. My point is like we're kind of we have a large percentage of people that are just there to fish. But it would be cool if people were just like having conversations out there and not. Yeah. It's a little slightly different.
Yeah, there's no like age group awards at a Grand Fondo triathlon. You're just out there just to do the race.
And it would be cool too to be like,
there's no
you can
block in the road.
Draft all you want to.
Draft all you want. There's no blocking of the roads. Hey, you got to put out, we'll have a couple big tents every once in a while, so you can refuel, and we're not doing fly-by grabs. You're just stop,
grab stuff.
Yeah,
maybe
grab
there's
stuff.
like party atmosphere. Yeah. And it'd be cool to have like an
big
Ironman,
trail run.
like an Ironman distance. So it's like
trail run. Oh my God. Yeah.
Trail run.
Yeah.
It could be.
Why don't we do this?
We'll come up with something.
Why has triathlon always got to be so serious? Triathlon's always got to be like...
I feel like it should be like...
It's not. They're just there for the finisher medal.
Exactly.
I feel like
take away the finisher medals. We need no more
I feel like you
medals.
do Ironman swim distance, maybe Ironman bike distance, or maybe just a century.
Yeah.
Just do a century.
And then a 3-mile run.
Yeah. I was going to say that. I was going to say maybe half marathon.
Yeah.
Because then it could be conversational.
Do you know what would be really funny? Would be to just like start throwing together triathlons at very random distances. And just see like who comes out. It'd be crazy to see like like what could some of these guys throw down if you did like an Ironman bike, but then a 5K run right after?
Oh,
it's like come off and just like go for it and see if there's anybody who would be good.
Let's stay on target here. Let's move on from swimming and go into the biking world. What do we need for biking? What is a...
You need a functional bike. It can be used. It can be... And so I made a video a while back saying like, how cheap can you make our sport? And I rattled through all this stuff.
Yep.
Came up with about $1,000.
Yeah.
That's
a big ask to get into a sport.
It is. It is. I think it's one of the biggest bummers of triathlon.
With that, you're looking at like a $300 to $500 bike that was used. I mean, I threw that in there, but I don't think I thought about the one of the things I didn't think about would be a recurring cost of a gym membership. I didn't add that into the mix.
Now going back to the bike too, if you're only spending $300 to $500 on a bike, I highly recommend you take that to a reputable bike shop and make sure that bike is safe to ride, because that's starting to get into the land of like,
super
all right,
sketch.
The bike could have some serious issues, and the last thing you want to know have happen to you is
mid-race.
Yeah, you're a mid-race or you're out there on a training ride, and all of a sudden something goes wonky sideways, and you can't stop, or something breaks, or you go down. That's not happy times.
And yeah, we know that. I would say also, if you can, and this is a little harder ask, but like bring someone with you to look at the used bikes who knows bikes. A lot of these people are people that actually would do that because they're crazy bike people. So they'll tell you like, oh, for $50 extra you can get the 105 component set. It's worth doing it, you know? And it's like, whatever, you're not going to know that stuff if you're just starting out in biking.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know,
trusting a bike shop helps.
Bike shops are good.
Bike shops that have consignment programs too, I think, are a good place to go.
Yeah, definitely.
It's we have that here at the Dialed Cycling Lab, and it works out really well. And it's a nice process for the customer selling the bike, and the person buying the bike knows that they're buying it from someone that's got a reputation that they need to maintain, and they don't want to sell you a big pile of junk, so they're going to disclose anything that might be wrong with the bike, and they're there to answer any questions for you. So if somebody were to walk in here and ask me about a X bike and tell me about this, that, and the other, I can give them all of the information that they need so they can make an informed decision on whether or not that's going to be the right bike for them. But like Matt said, having somebody go with you, that's a great way to go.
Yep.
And there are even some bike shops that will let you bring a bike in, and they'll kind of just be like there to consult you. Like, let's say that Matt's buying a bike from Evan, and Evan's going to say, all right, well, I'll meet you at this bike shop, and they're going to help us kind of go through this inspection process of this bike, so there's peace of mind there. That might cost you money, but that's good peace of mind.
Do you just pay like $50 to have someone there or something? Or
I don't. I've always just done that for people.
Probably like a tune-up
probably shouldn't
cost.
say that out loud.
Probably like a tune-up cost at your typical shop would be my guess. Yeah,
that's about what you'd end up paying for. Like
I think that's huge.
A consultation fee.
Other thing, going back to pointy helmet, you do not need a pointy helmet, but you do need a helmet.
Yep.
Yes.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah. It can be a BMX helmet if you need it.
Yeah, I see people all the time riding, even with their kids, without a helmet. I'm like, you're teaching that kid they have to wear a helmet all the time. Just put a helmet on.
Yeah.
So
Lance Epler.
Oh, Lance. I should have called Lance out.
On Lance's Instagram.
Yeah. God. For the bike, too, I think that getting a good pair of bike shorts with a chamois in there is probably a good place to go, too. So that you don't get into a situation where you're completely uncomfortable dealing with saddle sores is not happy times again.
And this is the other thing, is if you're looking to like, God, I just want to do a triathlon. I don't want to buy one of these like one-piece kits and like, God, these things are expensive.
You don't have to do that.
Oh, yeah. My first pair of tri shorts I think it was like $35.
Yeah.
It was a Pearl Izumi, which is no longer a company, which is a shame.
Nice. I've seen questions I've had questions like online, and it's kind of like, I've got my mountain bike. Do I have to buy a tri-suit? And I don't think they do. I think jammers make a lot of sense because you can make it through a triathlon. We're talking sprint triathlon here. If it's longer than that, you really do want bike shorts. But you can make it through without. You will be sore the next day, which is not fun. So the other thing is you can, in a transition area, you can just change into bike shorts, or you can change into whatever it is that you have that you want to wear. Typically, you might have to go to like a porta potty if the transition area situation is not great, but you should be allowed to do that. Just don't stress about the time.
Yeah. Couple other things from the biking world too for a triathlete to build up your fitness. It's not a need, but you're probably going to want to get yourself some sort of a trainer.
Yeah,
you don't have to get a smart trainer that costs you hundreds to, if not over $1,000. You don't have to go there. You can get just a basic, simple trainer. You can probably find one on Craigslist for $100.
Yep.
Put a speed sensor on there, and that's a good way to start logging miles.
The Kinetic I have out there, I think, is like 10 years old now.
Yeah.
Yeah. This time of year, I think people are very curious about what their options are. So
yeah, and that goes back to the same thing. It's like, well, you can just ride during the day, when it's light out and all that other fun stuff. So Anyway, but that's not reality for a lot of people. You got to go to work.
Oh, no.
Right? And then when you get home and it's dark and it's wet and it's rainy, that's not safe or happy times to go do.
No,
I ride
on the trainer out of pure necessity and
Yeah.
also because of time. So I know to a cyclist it seems easy, like, oh, why can't you, if you ride in the afternoon, why can't you just get home and ride? It's like that extra 3.5 minutes it takes to get things ready, to get outside, ride, and then stop at the stoplight. I will literally have minutes down, like 72 minutes to train before I have to be back in the car and back into work.
Yeah.
72 minutes can be either very productive or I have to sit for 2 minutes at a stoplight.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the trainer. That's, I mean, if you're talking about building fitness and you got a busy lifestyle, you need a trainer.
Yeah.
You do.
Trainers
again,
are good.
Yeah.
You don't need it, but you might want to get a membership to like Zwift. It's a monthly $15 fee, and that's a good place to go to get some training and ride with others.
I don't think that would be like one of the first things I would recommend. I mean, if you're $15 a month, I mean that's a lot for
some people. It is.
Yeah. I think if you have the funds to spend, it's worth it right now, because I think when you get into the sport, it's going to give you that motivation on the bike, because the bike trainer can be super boring.
The bike trainers are super boring.
For sure. My wife is using Zwift, and she's found a training program on there that she likes.
Yeah.
And it's not the best thing ever, but you know what? It's a training program that she's following, that she's diligent about, and it's built to help her increase her fitness endurance.
It's so crazy to think about how effective the training is on the trainers these days. I mean, when I first started riding on that Kinetic trainer, I had a DVD set in my college dorm. It was all the old Tour de France's.
Yeah.
I told you guys, from like 98 to whatever.
Yeah.
I'd plug those in. My intervals literally were when they are going hard in the race. I was like, I'll just go hard when they're going hard.
Yeah.
That was how I structured my intervals first. It wasn't like this like erg mode 10 by 1 minutes at the specific wattage. There are so many cool resources now, whether it's Trainer Road, Zwift, Trainer. I mean, really,
even when I first started triathlon, there wasn't any resource. Like Trainer Road had just come out, and it was like
I don't even remember that stuff. Yeah,
you didn't have these options. There was no Zwift, and it was like And I like got in on doing intervals because you come from running background. It's like I did intervals on the trainer,
like what you did running.
Like now the secret's out. Like everyone does this, and I'm like, crap, man, I can't.
That's why
I have that advantage.
I know
I
think that like erg mode and training programs are as effective as some forms of doping. I really do think they are. I think if you can take a really good athlete and get them logged on an erg mode and just lock them in, you're like, this guy's going to be fast. This guy or gal's going to be really quick. Yeah.
The other side of this is the last sport, running, is easy. I almost have zero questions typically about like what they need for running.
Yeah.
It's running shoes. That's it.
Get a good pair of running shoes.
Put your shoes on.
I will say, people really stress about the running shoe decision. They stress about the running shoe decision.
Do, but I'm thinking more people that are like, I signed up for a triathlon this weekend.
Exactly.
And I haven't trained any, but I'm going to go do that triathlon this weekend.
Yep.
They don't ask questions about the run.
No.
They're curious about the swim, and they're curious about the bike. But they typically have the answers that they need for the run.
My first triathlon I did in a very old pair of Brooks running shoes.
Yeah.
Like questionably old.
So you don't have any questions.
Wonderfully fine.
But me not being a runner or somebody who hasn't run in many, many, many years, I'm going to have questions for you. Like, how often should I run? How far should I be running? Should I be structuring that? And going back to the shoes, and then do I need coaching? Should I have a program? Do I need a watch? I mean, these are all questions that I'm going to ask you.
So no. And the thing that you should practice is running after biking, because there's so many people that have... they go out, they do their run, they run with their kids while their kids are biking or something like that. But there's a certain aspect to having your legs almost feel like numb in the quadricep area after kind of beating them up on the bike.
Okay.
And then getting out and running after that. It's very different than just your normal everyday, like going out for a run. They call it brick runs. What do we call it? We have like a better name, didn't we? Come up with something better?
OTB.
Yeah.
Off the bike.
Yeah. It was
over
like
the bars.
We didn't. Yeah. Over the bars. We just didn't like the brick run talk, but we use it anyway.
It was funny because I know like the people I hung out with in Ohio would always use OTB, and then when I started posting that to Strava, I got questions from people out here like,
"Did you crash?"
They were like, "What does OTB mean?" I was like, "It was off the bike. I don't know." I was like, "Is that not globally accepted? Is that just?"
I think it's better. Because I just always thought brick run was so lame.
I always thought brick run meant it had to be a bike run combo.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that just meant bike and then you can run once. I thought brick was always like multiple.
So I come from a mountain biking background, and if I ever saw somebody post something with an
OTB's
OTB
over the bars, right?
Yeah. So if I saw that from you,
we said that
the first time I saw that, I'm like, dude, did you crash? Are you okay? Is your bike okay?
You were running. How did you crash?
That's funny.
It was a Strava run with OTBs. You'd be like, what was he doing?
So, but all three disciplines, highly advised that you connect with others, correct?
I think that's one of the pieces that we've kind of kept similar. throughout all of these different recommendations is connect with someone who knows that, potentially connect with a club. You can pick up books and things like that, but you know, having some sort of insight from someone that's done this before is going to be helpful.
Okay, cool.
The Triathlon Training Bible is a good start
That's
for
exactly
anybody.
what I recommend to people.
I would say if you are starting completely green, just buy the Triathlon Training Bible. Worth reading through. Definitely.
Gotcha. I'm going to press pause on this conversation here real quick, and we'll let Evan go into his one last thing. And then, Matt, I've got a couple quick questions come back to you on. Evan's got to go be with patients and do worky stuff.
I know.
Do you have any one last things there, Mr. Price?
One last thing is hopefully here soon we can start the Sunday long run again. I'm not sure when me and Matt can get that set back up. We could start it a socially distanced style where we just all have different start times.
Are you done with this open water swim? Let's start it back up. I feel like we can do it.
The open water swims are done, so yeah, we could start it up. I was thinking we could even go waterfront or we could go heritage if we want. Doesn't matter. Yeah, we can start 2 different groups.
Start up slow, I guess.
Yeah, if we want to do 2 different groups too, we can do
we can
2
do
different spots. Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
There.
I won't see you
See
there,
you guys
but-
later.
All right.
Yep.
Have fun with those patients, bud.
Oh yeah.
All right, Matt, back onto this with you real quick.
Sure.
How do you go about convincing people to try your sport? So, like, let's just say, like, I mean, let's pretend that my ankle isn't all jacked up. Let's pretend that my shoulders aren't all messed up, and I am able to swim and run. How would you like you know that I can ride a little bit? How are you going to convince me to come out and give triathlon
show
a
you
try?
my videos.
Yeah,
show you my videos.
Check out my YouTube.
No, I mean that's the whole like. I think I said this in the video a couple weeks back where it's like, yeah, we talk about all these products. They're great. They attract a lot of people that have questions about products. But the sell is our sport is beautiful and you should check it out, right?
What's beautiful about your sport? I've heard you say that a few times. What makes it beautiful?
Open water swimming.
Think so?
Cruising on. I mean, think about this. When you go out for a bike and you cruise and the sun's in your, you know, you got the sun, you got that nice perfect breeze, and you just got a wide open road, and it's that beautiful country open road that you love with just this huge field next to you.
Yep.
Like, what is that feeling?
Oh, it's incredible.
It's beautiful.
But I don't see that from swimming. But I guess
it's
never.
there.
It's
okay,
there. You
just haven't seen it.
We've got a beautiful lake by us, Fallen Leaf Lake.
Right.
Well, you know that's
You
like
see
that's great when you go there, but you don't get to swim there all the time. And I hear of too many people. It's like, oh yeah, I went to the pool at the gym and I swam 48 laps of whatever and did this many meters. I'm like, that sounds like torture. I don't want to do that.
Some people would say that, and some people would say that biking up a slight hill, even with the wind on their back, is torture. And it's just a matter of the fact that they haven't found the beauty in it yet. And so that's my job and my challenge with this YouTube channel, right? So, the 48 laps, like there is something extremely therapeutic about pushing off the wall in the pool, off a good flip turn. It's, there's something extreme. Like for me, it's like, I don't know. They have those things where they have like the noise cancellation stuff, and they're like you're just in the zone, and you're But it's kind of like that where you have bubbles. It's all you hear is just like kind of like this bubbly underwater noise. Very therapeutic in my opinion.
It's a lot of you time, and you probably don't get a lot of that because you're probably always dealing with kids and family and work and phone calls and just distractions.
And it's rushing water over you. It just is something very, very magical about that. And that's in the pool for that 48 hours of staring at a black line. I get why that's boring, but there's also a piece that I really miss right now because I didn't even swim this week.
Yeah.
So there's that. The open water side of things is scary because you don't have anything to look at. You're looking down into this black murky lake.
Yeah.
But you're also out on typically a very nice day at an amazing location. Like it's very similar to stand-up paddleboard where you're just kind of out there in nature. And so open water swimming has a huge allure. And I try to make this kind of clear in the videos, but it's super hard. And then you have running, which I think kind of is very similar to maybe something like mountain biking or something like that, where it's you out on the trails, in nature.
Sure.
And what's the Japanese term for like nature bathing? I can't remember. There's some term for this, but I think it's extremely beneficial. Lower your blood pressure, all of those sort of things where it's like you're out there, you've got this time to yourself. Yeah. And it's amazing locations. I just think trails themselves are beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, I might be skewered towards thinking these things are beautiful because you have that endorphin rush when you're out there doing these things and you're in this nature environment. So maybe I've had enough of that now to where like I see a picture of a trail and I'm like, ooh, that's pretty. You know?
Well, I know for you, a big draw of where you actually live is your proximity to trails.
True.
Your proximity to a beautiful little lake.
Right.
And just your ability to get out and ride in beautiful country. There's something very special about where we live. This isn't everywhere, though.
True.
Like you could just live 20 minutes from here and you could be in the middle of like,
True.
whatever. And
Right.
there's none of that around. And you're not going to take the time to go out to be there.
And I grew up in Alabama, and I started running on just these roads that weren't that great, but there was sidewalk and there were people to run with, and it was still an enjoyable experience. And I slowly, after the fact, started to figure out trails and all that stuff and finding that really attractive. So it's probably the same for cycling, a lot of those kind of parallels with that. And so for me to sell it to you is just saying like, well, you've experienced this on the bike, but there's other opportunities. You've experienced it probably with stand-up paddleboard, but
a little bit,
but you can get that from swimming, and you might get a little bit more of that endorphin rush, and you can definitely experience that from running, and you might get a little bit even more of that endorphin rush while you're out there on those trails or those open lakes and these beautiful locations. So that would be my sales pitch, but I think I do a better job like showing the visuals.
Who gave you the sales pitch? You came off of a running career that was pretty solid, and you had a lot of accolades and accomplishments. And what was the big selling point for you to get into triathlon?
It's interesting that I'd always had an admiration for endurance sports. So someone comes over and they're like, I'm a collegiate swimmer. Like I would just almost feel connected with that person because I feel like they're kind of going through the same struggles as a collegiate runner, right? Same thing with cycling. You hear someone that's a cyclist, you think, oh, this person has gone through these endurance struggles and they still love the sport. So you have that feeling of connection. So you have those two sports, and there are probably other sports too, but those are the two that stuck out to me. Like they're endurance sports. They feel similar in a weird sort of way to what I have this similarity towards, that familiarity towards these kind of endurance things.
Gotcha.
So I've always had a lot of respect for those athletes. I never really kind of thought to take the next step until a doctor was like, your Achilles is bad. You need to take 3 months off. And that was like, I don't remember how old I was, like 30, in my 30s, like way after the fact. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'll take, 3 months off of running, but I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to buy a bike. And I bought a bike that day, basically sight unseen. The size was too big for me, but it was a good bike. The guy that sold to me was an amazing person, and I was going to join a swim club.
Yeah.
And my goal was to swim a mile at first, and it took me a long time to get there. I was confused about what a mile was, and it's I don't think you develop the love for swimming right away. Swimming in a pool like that is just challenge of, can I go this distance? And for biking, it's a little bit easier to come by, right? Because you have that descent, and it's just glorious, as Lance would say.
Yeah.
And you go around this beautiful lake that we live by, and it's beautiful. And you do it on a nice day, which makes it all the more beautiful. And so biking, I think, is an easier sell, although more dangerous. But, I mean, it is what it is. And then open water swimming, I think, is intimidating a little bit as you start. But once you get over that, I think it's a lot more attractive.
Gotcha.
So that would be my sales pitch.
Well, I think you've got a good pitch, and it's something that I would probably consider if I wasn't broken down.
Well, we might all be broken here.
I got a couple shoulders and an ankle that just don't.
They're not ready for swimming
or running, and I don't know if they ever will be. So
Yep.
We'll see. Cool. Well, that's triathlon.
That's triathlon talk.
Well, triathlon talk. That was fun, even though it's not my favorite cup of tea, but it's all good.
Yeah, but I'm trying to sell it to you.
Yep. There's a lot of people out there that are curious, and like you brought up Nels. I see on Strava like him logging runs, and then he's out there maybe dabbling with swimming stuff. I'm not 100% sure.
I think he has. I think he swam with the group a couple weeks back. Open water swim too.
Yeah.
So
I've got a good group of juniors, and those kids are out there doing it all, and they're just getting faster at everything too. So
yeah, I think Nels would be an amazing triathlete. I think he should consider doing like cross country to help him, because otherwise it's going to be hard to really get the running stuff figured out.
Gotcha.
So
last question here.
Sure.
Once you get somebody convinced, I'm going to do this, what's the process for registering for a race? What does that cost? How far out do you think that they should give themselves to actually start the first race? And how do you get over that anxiety, that build up to going into it for the first time?
So I would say triathlon costs are more expensive than a lot of cycling races, which is unfortunate. You might look to spend somewhere between $40 and $100 for registering for one event. And then I would say normally I would tell people, like, don't register for a race like 6 months out. But if you're new and want to motivate yourself, do it. Register for a race 6 months out.
Yeah.
You will be that much more motivated to train. You'll be that much more motivated when the weather's not super pretty outside. Yeah. And I just think that there is real value in that, even if you don't do the race.
And we always tell people, if you want to get motivated to do something, you want to stay on task, put something on the calendar. Go sign up for something and hold yourself accountable to that.
And then, so the next piece would be, just having, like we mentioned, that book, the Triathlon Bible. Something like that is worth picking up to kind of have a plan of attack. So
good. It's too bad that triathlon costs so much.
I really have a problem with that. Like, I originally made this video and it was like, what's the cheapest you can do the sport for? And it was like $1,000.
Yeah.
And that was no bike shorts, like just scraping by.
Yeah. Like super cheap, like, 7-Eleven sunglasses kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$7 goggles. And I priced everything out and it was like, cheapest bike I could find. And
what do you think the average person spends on a full triathlon get up?
I think what most people do, and maybe this is different than cycling, but you kind of slowly acquire stuff.
Sure.
Right? Like you finally get that TT helmet, but well over $5,000, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
and then
it's
got,
sad.
How many events do you think a normal triathlete does during the course of a year?
Not that many, actually. It may be 4.
Gotcha.
It's
and
not
the
a
average cost of a triathlon, though, I think it's much more than that $40 to $100.
Well, I think, if you're an entry-level triathlon, sprint triathlons are going to cost less, right? But the like an Ironman race, for example, is going to cost, if their half Ironman distance races might be like $400, and their full Ironman distance races might be like $700.
Sure.
So very, very expensive events. But you should definitely not necessarily look at that as your first event. I'd look at like a local race, and I would pick something out that looks friendly to you. Here in our area, they have a girlfriend's triathlon race, which is women specific. And I think that's just really nice entry into the sport of triathlon.
Yeah.
They have other events that are similar to that are just kind of like beginner triathlon events to help people kind of get into the sport and have it be a little less competitive. People are scared about open water, people hitting them and stuff like that while they're swimming and stuff like that. I don't think that's something huge to worry about, but a lot of the newer events for people have less of that stuff going on.
Gotcha.
So,
cool. All good stuff, man. Thanks for the Triathlon Takeover today.
My pleasure.
Cool. Let's do one last thing. What's your one last thing?
I always have a video to talk about, and I posted a video last week talking about the Polar Vantage V2 watch. So that was a watch that came out last Wednesday, and it's a pretty nice watch. It's a pretty nice triathlon watch. The video's decent. You should definitely check it out. Even if you just watch the first 2 minutes of it, you'll see my little intro with my whatever we were talking about, the splash of the water and the hard sell for the sport of triathlon. It's worth checking out. You can get that at youtube.com/mlegrand. That's where all my videos are, and there's got to be 150 videos up there.
It's a good resource, Matt. You've put together a nice little collection of work, and I think for the person that's really interested in triathlon, wants to get into triathlon, wants to get better at triathlon and know more about all the stuff in triathlon, that's a great place to go.
There's a lot of gear review type stuff.
Sure.
Which, I don't want my channel to be, 100% that, but that's what is tending it's just trending that direction. I will say that I have more gear stuff coming up in the near future.
Yeah, but they can still go back into your channel history and they can cherry pick out just about anything that they can think of with respect to triathlon.
Yeah.
So it's a resource that's going to be living and breathing for a lot of years to come. And as there's a quantum leap in a particular area, I'm sure you're going to go back and you'll do a video on it.
Yeah, and I should do that. I should go back and do any of these things that we've talked about on this video or on this podcast.
Sure.
Breathing drills and how much does a triathlon cost and all these things I think are really important for triathletes to know. And even if those videos aren't as popular, it's still good resources for people to have.
How many years old is your oldest videos?
Okay, so this is interesting. It will be in, I know that we're still a ways from March, but like the end of March, it'll be 3 years exactly. And
Since you started posting. Okay.
Yes, and I've done a video every single week. I have not missed one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's.
I know a podcast is doing that too.
There's a podcast somewhere around here. It's actually a really similar time frame to our podcast, because when you were like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, the first thing I said was like, well, I'm thinking about doing this video thing. And you were like, oh, I've been thinking about YouTube also. It's just like one of those things where it's like, we kind of had the idea at the similar time frame.
A lot of people don't know this, but Matt and I always come, and it's almost laughable. Like, you're like, oh, I just got this. I'm like, yeah, I just got that too. It's like ridiculous. We do that all the time. And Matt's like, oh, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm like, well, I've been talking about
doing that too.
I'm waiting for your podcast to come out so I can come be on your podcast. Right?
We could do. Yeah, I would love to do a triathlon specific podcast. I think it would be fun. I just don't have the time. I think it's a lot of work. I mean, you do a lot of the work, Jake, so it's like...
It does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I was actually just talking about that this weekend with my wife, and we're getting a little long on this podcast, but I don't want to bore people.
Yeah.
Every single week, it's fun to sit down and talk with you guys. And again, I tell this people, and it's not joking, I would do it if one person listened.
Yeah, it is. It's super
just
fun.
Because
this is our social hour.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, okay, well, now you have to sit down and you have to do all of the editing. You have to do all of the intro. And I don't know if people even pay attention to that. I don't know if
I
it
think
means
people like the intros.
anything.
Yeah.
But that takes time.
Yeah.
Going out there and you got to find the song or the music that I want to use. And I think we're coming up on, I got to go back and double check, coming up on like 100 consecutive shows almost with a cycling song that hasn't been recycled and used more than once. It's just absolutely nuts. And then trying to find the little sound bites that kind of somewhat play with what we talked about, mixing it all together. And then when you're done with that, then you got to export it all, and then you got to go do the thumbnail artwork, and then you've got to put it up on the website with all of the metadata and the SEO stuff and all the titles, and then you got to push it out to all the social media. That process
all takes time.
Probably takes almost 2 hours.
Yeah, I just don't think, like, I love our podcast setup. I think it's really nice and stuff like that. And it's like, if I did it, would I just do it over Skype with some people? I just don't think it would be as good. And now we have the bar set so high for our dialed podcast. I don't know.
Yeah. But
it's tough.
I was just talking with my wife. Do we just go to a canned intro and then we can do the show? And not everybody knows this, but we've got some new hardware here that would actually enable me to produce the whole entire podcast and be done with it within 15 minutes of us finishing, and we could post it up the same day if we wanted to.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
So, I don't know. Maybe people, if they have some 2 cents on that, let us know if that even means anything to you. Because, I mean, if you add up the 138 episodes times 2 hours of doing those intros, that adds up.
Yeah, and the videos are just so much... They're ridiculous, right?
Yeah, they take forever, and I'm learning that quickly, but it's so much fun.
The videos they're fun.
You kind of start to have like these little breakthroughs and these little aha moments with working with like the Adobe Premiere is what I'm using. That's what you use as well, and you start learning little things. I'm like, okay, that makes it a little bit easier. And watching all the YouTube videos about how to streamline your process and just tips and tricks, whatnot.
But yeah, I spend way too much time on my videos. Yeah. It's stupid.
But it's fun, and your channel's taken off. Did you crack the 4,000 mark?
I should crack it this week, I think.
That's
maybe
pretty cool,
in the next... How about this? When we come on the podcast next Monday, it should be around that time frame.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
For some people, they might say 4,000 is not a lot for me. I'm like, that's a ton of people because it's a very specific genre that you talk about, and you're doing nothing but growing. And honestly, I think that from a triathlon perspective, you put out one of the best videos for people that are delving into the whole triathlon world. So I think that you're just going to get more popular over the course of time. And we've had Triathlon Takeover on here before. Is he still the big draw or the big numbers guy?
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, it's different because you have like triathlon vlog type situation. Then you have like pro triathletes, and then you have gear review.
Sure.
So you have just different genres or whatever that I kind of dip my toes into all of those.
Yeah.
But he has kind of the biggest, I would say, following for like vlogs and things like that. He also does a podcast for triathlon.
Sure.
And then I think DC Rainmaker would be the biggest like tech gear review. Yeah.
Well, whatever you're doing, keep on doing it.
I'm trying.
Good stuff. My one last thing is for this podcast, we haven't asked our listeners in quite some time for a review. So to do some reviews on iTunes would be fantastic because that helps push things out. And we're going to be doing some new stuff just to try and share the podcast because we get
cool.
so much help from our Patrons now. They're going to help us kind of underwrite that, and we get to do more marketing and advertising for this podcast so that more people can stumble onto it. So for the Patreon people out there, thank you so much for making that possible. And if anybody wants to become a Patreon, they can go to dialpodcast.com. You'll find the link there. Click on through and do your stuff. So I think that's it, Matt.
That's it.
Triathlon Takeover out.
Triathlon Takeover for 2020.
Yep. Thank you all for listening again. We will see you next week. Bye for now.